Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you joining in from different countries and different continents and different nations of the world. Welcome to Influence Africa Forum, presented to you by Coaches of Influence Foundation. Coaches of Influence Foundation, known as COIF, is a youth and women's organization raising an army of influencers for intergenerational impact. So I am so honored to serve as your host for this prestigious occasion today when we are celebrating International Youth Day 2023. And if you're joining us for the first time, I want you to know that you're in the right place. Believe that you are in the right place this morning because Influence Africa Youth Forum is one of the programs offered by COIF, and it is a platform of dialogue. This is where education, positive influence, love for the continent, and solutions meet. This is a meeting ground where all of these things come together. You will hear from great dynamic speakers today who are going to come with so much passion and love for the continent of Africa. Mama Africa is smiling right now. And today we are celebrating International Youth Day. And this is a celebration that is going on globally this entire week. There are celebrations ringing from every continent, every corner in the world. We are celebrating youth. And Coaches of Influence Foundation chose a theme which speaks to the needs of the youth of Africa. At this point, before we go any further, we have to pause because we believe that we cannot do anything. We cannot accomplish anything. We cannot be anything without the help of our Creator. So we are going to take a minute of silence for everyone to pray and invite this Creator to be in our midst this morning. Let's take a minute to pray and then we'll come back and continue. All right. Now that we have invited the power of God in our midst now, the sky is not even the limit. We are taking off and we are flying high and we are going right into the skies and through the skies at high altitude. So to kick off our celebration this morning, we want to begin because this is Influence Africa Youth Forum. If you're joining us for the first time, you are in Influence Africa Youth Forum, presented to you by Coaches of Influence Foundation, a youth and women's organization raising an army of influencers globally. So we are going to begin with the African Union Anthem. Please turn your attention to the video presentation for the African Union Anthem. Well, it appears that our production team are still preparing.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa a tree of life. Let us all
celebrating. That is a call. That anthem is a challenge. That anthem says, let us make Africa the tree of life. But who are these people that are going to make Africa the tree of life? It is no other than the sons and the daughters of Africa. So we are called on this platform today. This is why we have Influence Africa Youth Forum, because we believe that the youth are the assets of Africa, and the youth have that life in them to make Africa the tree of life. Now, let's dive into our session today. Welcome, welcome. We are joining in from different continents and different nations of the world. We welcome you to this platform of dialogue. This is where influence, love for the continent, solutions, and everything meet. This is Influence Africa Youth Forum, presented to you by coaches of Influence Foundation. Now we are ready to dive into the program. And the moment we have been waiting for, folks, is already here. So let's get started. We are going to hear from a dynamic young lady. And this lady is no other than Honorable Bernadette Mendy. And let me tell you why she has the title of Honorable. Because Coaches of Influence Foundation has a program, a Model United Nations program, and Bernadette happens to be the Deputy Secretary General of Coaches United Nations Simulation. Bernadette is a fifth-year medical student at the University of the Gambia. She is a board member and alumni of Coaches of Influence Foundation. I don't need to say any more about Bernadette. We are going to hear from her. So please help me welcome Honorable Mendy to share her opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon on this end. Good morning to you, Doctor, and everyone else. Good evening to you, if that's the time you are in. Wherever you are logging from, welcome to this noble event. As Doctor said, I am Bernadette Mendy, and today we are celebrating the International Youth Day together with our second Influence Africa Youth Forum since its launching on May 25th during the Africa Day celebration. This event is brought to you by Coaches of Influence Foundation. On August 12, which is today, the International Youth Day is celebrated globally to highlight and recognize the presence of youths in our world and the significant contribution they make to national and global development, as well as the limiting barriers and how they can be alleviated to enable youths thrive in their world. This year's theme is quite interesting: green skills for youth towards a sustainable world. And this has been aligned and supplemented by the theme for our second episode of the Influence Africa Youth Forum, which is equipping Africa's youth with digital skills for sustainable development. This indicates the undeniable global and continental interest in helping youths rise as leaders with sustainable visions adequate enough to sustain their lives, communities, countries, nations, and the world at large. Just like Martin Luther King said, and I quote, "May I stress the need for courageous, intelligent, and dedicated leadership. Leaders of sound integrity. Leaders not in love with publicity, but in love with justice. Leaders not in love with money, but in love with humanity. Leaders who can subject their particular egos to the greatness of the cause." Today we have two panels, the Tech panel and Diversity and Inclusion panel, with our theme in context: equipping Africa's youth with digital skills for sustainable development. And this panel is comprised of bright-minded and highly sound speakers who will, by the end of this event and forum, further enlighten you as present-day youths, empower you to be positioned rightly to pursue your cause, and challenge you to think possibility and taking a step no matter what. Just like Martin Luther King said again, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. And that if you cannot fly, then run. If you cannot run, then walk. If you cannot walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. In addition to the phenomenal panel discussions, the lively and refreshing entertainments that will be brought to you by our mentees from the school and youth mentorship programs, all culminate to equipping you with the right skills and information that will raise you high like an edifice and build you into an intergenerational leader with continental and global impact to build the Africa we all envision. Finally, the best way to solve any problem is to remove its cause, says Martin Luther. Therefore, knowing fully well that equipping the sons and daughters of Africa, as highlighted in our Anthem, with digital skills will be an added advantage to addressing the developmental talks we are faced with. I want to encourage you to take advantage of this moment and open up to receive the wealth of knowledge that will be delivered to you by our dynamic speakers today. On behalf of Coaches of Influence Foundation and Coaches United Nations Simulation, of which I am the Deputy Secretary General, I formally welcome you once more to our International Youth Day and Influence Africa Youth Forum celebration today. Enjoy the ride with our esteemed moderators and distinguished and diverse panelists. Thank you all.
That was Honorable Bernadette Mendy, the Deputy Secretary General for Coaches United Nations Simulations, which is a model United Nations program within the Coaches of Influence Foundation organization. Now, thank you very much, Honorable Bernadette, for such profound remarks. Now the gates have swung open and we are ready to dive into the program. Bernadette have just given us the key and she has opened the gates and we are ready to dive into the program for today. Remember, this is Influence Africa Youth Forum. It's a platform of dialogue, a program of Coaches of Influence Foundation, which is a youth and women's organization that is raising an army of influencers for global impact. This is Coaches of Influence Foundation, COIF. So now we are ready to begin today's program, and the theme of our program today is equipping Africa's youth with digital skills for sustainable development. I think that is a very profound theme, and it is very relevant and much needed. Without further ado, let us dive into the program with a video presentation from one of our youth. So lean forward as we enjoy the presentation.
Empowering Africa's youth, embracing the digital future. Welcome to the transformation of Africa, a journey driven by digital innovation and powered by its youth. Digital technologies are reshaping Africa, connecting its people and propelling progress like never before. Yet, challenges persist. The digital divide separates those with access from those without, limiting opportunities for many. Empowering the young with digital skills unlocks the world of opportunity and creates a brighter future for Africa. Together, we strive for digital inclusion, ensuring every African youth has a chance to thrive in the digital age. We embrace artificial intelligence to enhance various sectors, bolster cybersecurity to protect digital infrastructure, and promote digital financial inclusion, enabling mobile money and digital payments for all. We bridge the digital divide, tackle cybersecurity challenges, and leverage cutting-edge technologies to shape a sustainable Africa. Join us as we celebrate Africa's digital transformation, bridge the divide, and empower its youth for a brighter future. Together, we build a future where Africa's youth lead the way towards progress, prosperity, and digital inclusion, embracing artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and innovative technologies.
That was a second-year mentee of Coaches of Influence Foundation, Ms. Seinabu Jatta, in the Gambia. And this video was produced by the Secretary General of Coaches United Nations Simulations, Abdul Karim Baji, who is also a moderator for the second panel today. So COIF, we mean business. When COIF says they are raising an army of influencers for global impact, this is what we are talking about. These are influencers that are being raised. Now we are ready for the tech panel, our first panel for today. We are ready for them, and please relax and enjoy the introductions. And at the end of the introductions, we'll have the moderator take us through the tech panel. We'll hear from all our dynamic speakers and professionals in the digital world, in the tech world. These are the sons and the daughters of Mama Africa that are going to make Africa the tree of life. Enjoy the introductions.
Consultant, a journalist and the founder of the Anthem Consulting, located in Norwich, Connecticut, USA, where she also resides with her family. Since 2008, she has been assisting professionals, businesses, and non-profits invest in the USA and West African countries such as Senegal, Togo, and Ghana. She supports various causes that empower women and raises awareness on human rights. In 2021, Margaret initiated the Africa Trade Show, an international trade show which aims to positively impact the development of the continent through its diaspora citizens. Several international initiatives have been successfully implemented toward the African communities in the US, Europe, and in Africa. In 2022, 3 more projects launched: Nikini Trade Show, CT Afrofusion Festival, and the e-commerce platform IJE. Please lean forward as we welcome the moderator of the tech panel, Margaret Courier.
Abdel Fane. Abdel C. Fane is an accomplished leader and cybersecurity expert with over 15 years of experience providing strategic security consulting, designing and engineering robust security solutions, and leading cybersecurity teams and initiatives. He has made contributions in a variety of industries, including agriculture, banking and financial services, healthcare, media, telecommunications, and the United States government. Abdel was born in Bamako, Mali, and relocated to the United States at age 11. He is also the co-founder and chair of CSNP, a non-profit organization that provides accessible cybersecurity education and training, with over 10,000 members in cities across North America, as well as partnerships with organizations in Africa. CSNP is an international organization with the purpose of improving cybersecurity worldwide. Please join me to welcome Abdel Fane to the Influence Africa Forum. Abubakar Luga is a tech leader at Avalara, a top indirect tax software provider. He is a senior manager of the professional services team, where he oversees the implementation of Avalara tax automation software suites for energy, tobacco, and telecommunication customers. Buba was born and raised in a business-oriented family in Burkina Faso in West Africa, where he developed a keen interest for business and investment. In early 2019, he co-founded the Texas Africa Chamber of Commerce to facilitate African integration in Texas and to build a bridge between Texas investors and entrepreneurs and their counterparts in Africa. He currently serves as the Vice President of the Chamber. Please help us to welcome to the tech panel, Buba Luge.
David Makariakago. David Makariakago is a devoted father, certified information technology system analyst, and a skilled product owner based in Dallas. For over a decade in IT, Kago's passion lies in creating user-focused computer software. He is also an artificial intelligence AI power user, expertly testing AI systems to simplify the experience for others. Beyond work, Kago finds solace in screenwriting and the thrill of rollerblading, perfectly blending his tech expertise with a zest for life's joy. Let's welcome David Kago to the Influence Africa Youth Dialogue Forum.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are. I am Marguerite. I am so delighted to be here. I just wanted to take a couple minutes just to go back to a few things that had really struck my attention this morning. The African Union Anthem. Oh my gosh, it is so, I felt it. I actually did not know we had an anthem. And it was my first time hearing the anthem, and it was truly amazing and inspiring. I want to take another moment too to thank Dr. Margaret Ellis for all this hard work of putting together people. It is a beautiful initiative, and I am so grateful for the circumstances that led me today to be moderating this panel. And it's awesome. It is really awesome to be able to share experience, and it's just awesome. I believe that each panelist today, each speaker has so much to share with you. And we are here not only to motivate, to share, to educate, answer questions, but we want you to feel that there are no limits. There are no limits to the African youth. There are no limits to any humans being on what you can do as long as you set your heart to it and put some hard work. So without further ado, let's dive right into our first panel, which is analyzing technology trends, impacts, and perspective for the African youth. Tech is all over the place. We're all talking about AI, cybersecurity, and ICT, but what is it? What is it? Why do we have to concern ourselves with these questions or these topics? What can we do? How is this going to benefit us as humans, as Africans, and also benefit our communities, our societies, countries, and overall our continent? So today we have wonderful, outstanding experts that are here to share their knowledge and just their motivation, their energy with you. So I pray that everyone pays attention to this panel. It is going to be awesome, and feel free to ask your questions. But without further ado, let's get into the first steps. We hear artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and ICT, information and technology, but what is that exactly? What it is precisely? And can we go all over? Each speaker will get an opportunity to answer this very question, which is, what are the choices, steps, and education needed to be in your field? I'd like to start with Abubak. I cannot hear you, Abubak. Yeah, there we go. No. Is it your volume? Are you muted? Because I can read your lips. But how about
How about now?
Perfect. It's working.
All right.
Brother.
Perfect. All right, that was a very good test of ICT. So thank you very much. All right, now I lost my train of thoughts. The question is to talk about IT,
education, the steps that you've taken as a professional to be where you are, and if you can just also introduce what it is precisely.
Okay. Um, So education background for myself. So basically, so let me start by thanking very much Coach of Influence for putting this wonderful event together, and also thank you all the people that are joining across the globe, so that we can share the information together, and we can learn from each other and see what actionable item, or what actionable step we can take to better the continent, to empower the youth, so that we can all give something back to Africa and also to the future generations. So thank you very much. As far as myself, I grew up in Burkina Faso, West African countries, and I moved to US back in 2016 to further my education. I went to business school, MIS. I came from a computer science background back in Burkina Faso. Went to MIS at University of Houston, graduated and started working for a software company that builds software across the globe, United States, Europe, and Latin America. So, and I also got a data science background. Very interesting to learn more about technology and see how we can use it to facilitate our everyday life.
Mhm.
So today we are here to talk about those three different areas: securities and also ICT. So ICT is a very broad term that unifies any types of technology that people can use basically to store information, to retrieve it, to collect it, to transmit it, and also to do some kind of processing of that information. When we think of ICT, let's think about computers, let's think about internet, let's think about live broadcasting. By live broadcasting, I'm referring to, for instance, radio, televisions, and all of these times that you can have information processed directly from people that are sending the information to the audience. And also, we can think of recorded broadcasting. Recorded broadcasting, we can think of podcasts or even your Facebook, right? Your Facebook, you gathering information there. You can think of YouTube. All of those are recorded broadcasting. And the last component is also telephone. So there are basically telephone, right? Mobile phone, satellite, video conference. Right now, we are doing ICT. So those are five group of areas are what we define as ICT: the computer, the internet, live broadcasting, recorded broadcasting, and telephone.
So ICT means information, communication, and technology, correct?
Correct.
Definitions
Information
are
communication
important.
technology. Sorry, I
Thank
should have
you.
defined what the acronym means, but I went right into um, the layman terms definition, so we can all be on the same page.
Yeah, awesome. Bubaka, you did fantastic. I am so pumped to have this opportunity to exchange with you and also with Abdel and David. So, speaking of David, could you come back and introduce me a little bit, introduce us, just answer the same question about cybersecurity? And I'm sorry, Abdel, sorry. I said, David, we're doing AI with you. So, can you go back to what it is and what is your educational background and what you're doing right now?
Thank you for your question. If my audio is okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Is my audio okay? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
First, I apologize. My voice is, I don't usually talk in this low tone. It's because I traveled and I'm now in Kenya, where I caught a little bit of God's blessings here. Flu. However, happy to be here today. My name is David Kago. I have a computer science background, just like my colleague. I went to school at Nairobi University here in Nairobi, Kenya. Fortunately, I was able to move to the US 10 years ago, where I transferred my skills. I delved into the world of AI, business analysis, systems analysis, where I found my passion. I thrive being an analyst, and I think a lot of Kenyans pride themselves in analyzing things a lot, and so my Kenyanness really integrated into the system analysis fields in the over there. I added a one associate's degree just to supercharge my qualifications. That would be management information systems. I also did two certifications for software development as well as Recently, 1 week ago, I graduated with a certificate in ECBA, which is the entry certificate in business analysis administered by the International Institute of Business Analysts. I will talk about that later, only because it's a pathway for many youths to find their footing in the computer science world and bridge tech and business together, and people and problem solving, which is what we're doing. You asked for choices and steps that it took to get here. I would say the choices were being open-minded, staying open-minded. I mean, moving, taking your computer science degree to the US, trying all this. They needed me to be very open-minded, accepting of my situations, and believing in my own skills and in God as well. But belief, self-belief in that I am part of the IT world. I can make a difference. It's a trending topic for the next 100 years, perhaps. And so I'm happy here today to share with the panel here. I'm here to learn mostly also. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so very much for that presentation, David. And our next speaker is Abdel. Abdel, when I hear cybersecurity, it sounds so serious, such complicated concept. I'm like, wow, cybersecurity. What is that? Can you break it down a little bit to us? And just like the other speakers, just get into your choices, the steps, and education needed to be in your field.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank you, moderator, and I want to thank Coaches of Influence for having me here. So let's talk about cybersecurity. I think between my colleagues here on the call, it's a good segue, right? When you think about ICT, when you think about AI, when you think about technology in general, the technology needs to be secure, right? So if you use a banking app, you're transferring money between your colleagues, your friends, whoever it is, your family. You don't want somebody else to come in and be able to take that money, right? This is cybersecurity. When you think about having computer viruses, things that take over your computer and you can't use it, this is cybersecurity, right? So when we think about technology in general, anything that has to do with any kind of communication, computer, we're talking about cybersecurity. We're talking about how do we secure this technology so that somebody else who should not have this information has access to it, right? So that's kind of cybersecurity in a nutshell. So a little bit about my background. I was born in Mali. I moved to the US at the age of 11. And I study information technology. That was my bachelor's degree, and I earned my master's in cybersecurity and forensics. So after earning these degrees, I joined the workforce, and I kind of just started moving up. I started as a system engineer, and eventually I made my way into a cybersecurity professional. Today, I am the chair and co-founder of Cybersecurity Nonprofit. This is an organization that we launched about 4 years ago in the US, and the idea was really help other people get into cybersecurity, right? So when you take a look at our website, our resources are free. We don't have membership fees. It's free, right? Because I think it was Dr. King. I did not know Dr. King had once said that, right? Which was if you want people to access something, you have to give them a pathway to that, right? Any kind of membership fee, any kind of application process, anything you put in the way becomes a barrier, right? And we did not want to create this barrier. And of course, being from Mali, I know what kind of resources we have available there, not much. So I kind of wanted to open this door up for really everyone. So that's really how I got here.
Awesome, guys. I don't know about anybody watching us. Are you pumped? Because I am super pumped and I can feel the energy in here. So these are all sets of experts. There are definitely also entrepreneurs. They have the knowledge, the skill, the experience, and the expertise. And today we're all here for our Youth Influence forum just to motivate you. I hope you stay tuned up until the end because awesome things are coming up. Now let's get to my questions. I will grab David and ask him, why did you choose to work in AI? I understand you kind of a little bit poke that and that questions in your presentation, but can you go a little bit elaborate more onto it?
Thank you for the question. You asking why I delved into the world of AI. As a system analyst for the last 6 years, part of my job was to sit down with business units or users, people who use layman's language. They know what they want, but they cannot really put it all into technical language. And so as a business system analyst, my job would be to get those needs, bridge them with the technicals, create the models for the technical guys to take that and work it through their development teams. So that pipeline, as soon as you bring up the concept of AI, in this case, artificial intelligence, in this case, enabling the computer to perform tasks that would be deemed intelligent tasks traditionally, which is what we mean by AI. And so once I sat down and saw my pipeline and I started playing around with tools, and it started very basically, it was me on my downtime thinking, how can I improve my processes? How can I become more efficient? And I remember one example was I was designing a mock-up for a new software system. And I thought, are there tools that can help me quickly go from idea to approval? Meaning, can I turn overnight a mock-up, and which usually takes 3 to 4 days? And true to word, I was able to find tools out there that would get my sketches and convert them into fully fledged products by the power of AI, meaning the computer has included its intelligent processing and taken that mock-up, that sketchy mock-up, that rough mock-up, and did all the work of cleaning it up, presenting it enough for the business users to care and approve, which is what we want at the end of the day. And so as soon as I saw those results, I was sold. And so I started thinking, how else can I improve my pipeline?
All right, that was very technical. Please break it down to me. Let's say I am an entrepreneur. I have a problem. I want to run ads on Facebook, and I don't have a lot of time, not a lot of skills. What can you do to help me with? I want to run ads on Facebook, which is very specific. What can AI do to support my process?
For example, great example. You want to run ads on Facebook, you want eyeballs to your ad. Eventually your goal is to sell your product, for example, or have some kind of engagement action on your product. So I would use the simplest, most trending AI tool out there, ChatGPT, for example, and other flavors around it. I would use that AI, go to chatgpt.com, for example. I would go there and I would write exactly what you said, verbatim, word by word. And that's the power of AI. It's accessible now to you, even before you talk to me as a tech user, so that by the time you come to me, you are empowered in some way. And so you would go to ChatGPT, for example, you'd say, you are an expert in Facebook marketing. I want to create a Facebook ad, and these are the parameters. It's gonna run in Burkina Faso only on 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's gonna target only women. It's gonna target people waking up. All these parameters. You take that parameters, and ChatGPT and other AI tools will apply the intelligence and provide you not only a step-by-step method how you can do that, but also a schedule. A schedule is such an intelligent part of, and it's not usually part of tasks, but with AI, you can create even a schedule of what you want to accomplish. Meaning, okay, today you're going to post this ad at this time. Why? Because its intelligence knows that people in Burkina Faso will appreciate your ad more at this time. And that's the deep-seated intelligence that we're talking about. And that's why it's so trending out there. So that's the first step I would start. And of course, there's so many other things that you would do. For example, improve the quality of your pictures using AI. Take a photo, use AI, tools here and there, and we can specify them so every part of your Facebook ad campaign can be optimized. And just to add that in, these platforms are also including AI tools because they're seeing these kind of questions coming up. And so you'll find these tools in your Facebook platform, for example, because they're trying to integrate them. So watch out for integration of AI tools in your daily usages.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is better. That definitely is my language. Thank you very much for all those the additional explanation. So now that we see how AI can make life, work, and so many other areas easier or doable or more effective, I'd like to go with Abdel and ask because I know as a young student or professional, it is all important for us to find a job or at least to if we're interested in these technology careers. And this question also speaks to different areas, but specifically, Abdel, what are the requirements to land a job and be successful in cybersecurity?
Um, Good question. So what are the requirements? I want to say the number one requirement is passion, right?
Okay.
You have passion for it, you can learn it. Um, I earned a master's in cybersecurity. Um, Interesting enough, I learned more on YouTube than my graduate program taught me, right? Yes. And that's because when you think about the educational system, technology evolves so fast. It evolves so fast. By the time educational system catches up, it's already 4 years behind, right?
Mm.
So that means that not the things that I was learning in college by the time I graduated were kind of irrelevant, right? So I got on YouTube, I got on the internet, I'm taking online free classes left and right, and just trying to learn and understand how this thing work, right? I want to say that what, if you have the passion, you can do it. Cybersecurity is it's such a large branch. You don't have to be a cybersecurity engineer. You don't need to know how to code, right? You can do things like cybersecurity auditing, or someone who creates cybersecurity privacy laws, right? These are important as we're seeing technology take off. We're seeing like companies like Facebook, they're mining our data, right? They're doing whatever they want with it, right? When you have a strong privacy law, they can't do that. You're stopping them from doing that, right? So I want to say, if you have a computer science background, cybersecurity will be much easier, right? Because that would allow you to easily transition to an engineering role. Now, where you're using your computer science background to secure the technology, right?
Awesome. Okay. Okay, passion is definitely important. It's the first step, and I think it'll fuel your motivations and whatever you're doing. If you're not passionate about it, it'll be harder. It will be harder, definitely. So thank you for that answer. And Abu Bakr, can you? We've already touched it a little bit, but can you go into defining ICT in layman's term so we can all be on the same page during this discussion?
Yep. So earlier I mentioned that yes, in the introduction that ICT basically is all sorts of technology, right, that you can utilize to collect data, to store that data, retrieve that data, and also manipulate data and share it with people. That's what is the definition of ICT. And when we take that definition, how does it apply to our day-to-day life? Where can we see ICT? Where do we interact with ICT devices and also tools? I spoke about computer as a first element, or the internet, right? Internet, we all exchange messages today, right? We have what do you call instant messaging system, WhatsApp, Facebook, all of these, right? And then we have live broadcasting. What we are currently doing today is part of ICT, right? We are currently exchanging information. We are learning from each other real time. That's part of ICT. And another component is store information. Mr. David, or Abdel, sorry, he mentioned that he learned a lot more on YouTube in his arena. So that tells us already in ICT, what can we utilize it for? So recorded information is part of ICT. And the last component is also telecommunication, like a telephone. You take your cell phone today, you're able to call in any part of the world. Today, I can call in Kenya, can call in Mali, Burkina Faso, or China, everywhere. So ICT, basically, when we take it at the definition and also all of the pieces of element, we can think of it as the technology that help facilitate our day-to-day life.
So, Abubak, we cannot escape ICT nowadays, regardless, consciously or unconsciously. We are all exploiting or using it on a daily basis, if not every second of our lives.
Absolutely, that is
So,
correct.
that brings me to the fact that, like, really quick, what would you recommend anybody, like the African youth precisely, to look into ICT careers?
So there are multiple reasons to make a recommendation for ICT career today, right? Number one, we are trending towards a digital world.
Mhm.
We are already a digital world, but it's even going further and further. In Africa, there is pretty much a lot to do. I would say when you look at the Western world compared to what we have in Africa, you see plenty of opportunity right in Africa, but also globally.
Mhm.
You learn the skill set today in ICT, you can find a career even outside of Africa while living in Africa.
Mhm.
You can have well-paying job. That's one component. So let's talk about the financial aspect, the financial benefit, and also what you can do for your own community. So when you look at the financial benefit, there are tons of opportunities. Look at India, right? United States, and also part of every other part of the world. India government invested a lot in ICT skill set, programming, and even AI technology. Today, you cannot name any large company in the world that doesn't have a representation in India. People are working there, making well-paying wages in India. They don't. Some of them don't even dream to come in Western world because with the types of money that are making there is as competitive as what they are making in United States.
Mhm.
When we take it in Africa, what is start beginning to start in India and also some Latin American countries that have benefited from outsourcing. When I'm talking about working for Western companies, while in India, we talk about outsourcing. If there is a need to define that term, I can define it. So if you have that skill set in Africa, think of it as the wages are increasing in India and also Latin America, companies are going to start eyeing Africa for better, like I would say, competitive wages, wages that don't pay as high as they are currently paying for India, but they can do the same. They can have the same type of skill set in Africa at
Mhm.
slightly lower money, which in local money is still a lot of money for us.
Mhm.
So this is the financial benefit that you can think of. Now, if you are looking on how you can impact your country or your continent, there is tons of things that you can do in Africa in AI, right? In AI or ICT, generally speaking, you have a digitalization of many things that need to happen in Africa.
Mhm.
Let's take, for instance, real estate. People living outside of Africa, they when they want to buy land in Africa, it's tons of problem they encounter.
Mhm.
How can you digitalize that information in such a way that transaction can happen without a lot of litigation?
Mhm.
You can bring technology into the equation so that there is no repeat or duplicate of selling the same land to multiple people.
Mhm.
One example of application of AI. And even like you want to have some kind of like shipping some items from one place to another place, or even payment system. Payment system, there are increasing payment system in Africa, but it's still not enough. There are multiple things that you can copy from the Western world. You don't even have to add much to it, and then you can make a business, a well-paying business out of it.
Mhm.
I can go into more detail, but I'm gonna stop here for now and collect more data.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Guys, I'm just reminding you that we are all brought together by the Coaches of Influence Foundation, and our discussion today is about analyzing technology trends, impacts, and perspective for African youth. We're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and ICT, information, communication, and technology. And today we have generous and outstanding speakers such as Abubak Abdel and David. They are all experts in their own field, and all we want to do is to motivate you and make sure that you understand and you take the most out of our conversation. So feel free to share, call your friends, tell everybody we're having such a fantastic conversation today, and they should be aware of it. Make sure also you follow Coaches of Influence Foundation. They're doing a fantastic work within toward the African youth. So we have to lift them up and make sure that everybody gets to this great information. So let's move along our conversation. And next question I have is for David. How can we bring together the world of AI and African youth ambition in creating sustainable development for Africa? That's a great question, David. So I trust you for the answer.
Thank you for the question. You're asking how can we bridge the world of AI with the youth with the goal of creating a sustainable development for Africa. I'm around almost in my 35th year, and growing up, the theme of development in Africa or youth development in Africa has always been occurring, and I've appreciated how it has morphed over my lifetime. Having said that, today I'm happy to be able to comment on what I believe, based on data, are the steps where African youths can start by diving in and deep into the world of AI, identify and understand what the capabilities of AI can do, and understand the problems enough to either apply those tools or discard. Because at the end of the day, the youth or whoever is trying to solve the problems have to stick to science, so to speak. That's our scope of working. Having said that, I could come up with three diverse ways or overarching ways that can be broken down to details. However, one would be, I'll take robotics as an example. In the world of artificial intelligence, robotics would be basically making inanimate objects animate, for example. Just the most basic definition. What are we talking about here? For example, look at farmers in the farmlands of Algeria, for example. They're using AI technology to map out how they could effectively farm lands in such a way that the resources are allocated in a most effective way. Another good example would be, I think in northern Kenya, if I'm not wrong, there have been applications in AI that enable, that they're testing this, ways in which to predict the weather more accurately by using AI, meaning feeding historical weather data that we've always had into AI and having that come out with a schedule again, a schedule of how you can come up with a better farming mechanism, for example. And so just to conclude, three great ways that youth can bridge or can dive into the world of AI enough to solve problems would be, first, understand AI, understand it from the basic level, read about it, Google about it, read about what's going on in other countries, read about all the negative things that are happening, then understand our African if you cater to both those lanes for a while, you will start to see solutions coming up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. And Abdel, can you share your perspective on the importance of equipping Africa's youth with digital skills for sustainable development as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We are in a digital age, right? Like we would say, we're in this moment today, and it's going to continue to grow. The more and more we rely on technology that means the more important it is that we secure those technology, right? Once again, when we talk about cybersecurity, we're talking about someone kind of taking over your internet communication without your knowledge, right? So this could be a message you're sending to someone. Imagine somebody reading your text messages as you send it to somebody else. Imagine you're making a phone call, somebody else is listening to that, right? So, as we move towards to this digital age, it is important that we continue to invest in cybersecurity and secure those technologies, right? And earlier Buba did make a mention about the war looking into Africa, right? The war looking into Africa is transitioning from India to Africa. We've at CSNP we've done some studies on that. We've done research on Africa. More recently, we had an opportunity with COIF to go to Kenya. And within this research, what we found was that in 30 years, Africa will have the youngest youth, right? And what that means is that the world is going to look at Africa to help with, all of their needs, right? So whether it is ICT, whether it is AI or cybersecurity, the youth are the future. And that means that it is essential, or it is important that we start preparing for this future today, right? So that we have the necessary skill set when that time comes, and we could possibly become the global power, right? We have all of the resources within our hands.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. It is definitely going to be challenging and also full of opportunities, because Africa has the people. We would second China in being the manufacturer of the world. There's so many perspectives out there for our continents, but we need to start now. If we're not equipping our youth with the basic skills, not just basic, but the trending skills to face that, we will also miss that opportunity that was just brought to us, or that was just thrown at our face. So we most definitely need to we cannot escape the technology world. It's the next revolution, or we are into that revolution. It's a must. We all need to look into technology nowadays, and AI, cybersecurity, and ICT are definitely the backbones of what's coming next. So this conversation is going so great, but I don't want Margaret to allow me. She's here. She's gonna love it. But hey, time is catching up. Can I have Abubakar really quick go into an assessment of Africa's readiness for the global digital economy?
So in Africa, I think there is a lot of progresses that are currently being made. So we have, I think I was reading not long time ago, UNESCO and Rwanda, for instance, they are investing in ICT-based types of education, right? To be able to educate people at longer distance. So all of these steps are being taken in Africa today, which is very encouraging. But when you look at it from what do we need to catch up with the future, to catch up with other competitive economies, I think we have greater step to take in Africa to be there, right? So when you take, for instance, when we were talking about outsourcing, you have to have some sort of internet speed that are reliable and also very fast. A lot of African countries, unfortunately, are lacking in that space. Sometimes when I'm in Africa, I do work from there. There are some challenges that I meet with in the speed of internet. Unless our government take the step to make internet very reliable, we are not going to be ready to compete for those global businesses. To have Deloitte, to have Accenture, to have ExxonMobil, hire people that work locally and make good wage while they stay in their country, to make good money and also reinvest in their country. So I think we have to think about investing a lot in those infrastructure to make sure that internet is reliable. We can stay there and work directly with the rest of the world. Those are steps that I think not need to be taken by government. And for the private sector, there are some steps that need to be taken. Like for instance, us that are here, there are certain things that we can start outsourcing in Africa, right, to help build up the skill set. Right now, I'm building in Africa in like application that I'm currently hiring people in Africa to do it, rather than necessarily looking at here. I'm looking at skill sets in Africa to help build those one. Of course, there'll be mentor and look after by people that have so much experience here, but giving out some of those businesses to African youth, we can help build up the skill set. So in a nutshell, we have taken some steps, but we have longer way, and we need a government participation and also private sector helping with building up the skill set little by little. Any little thing that can be outsourced, let's think about it and give it to younger people in Africa so they can sharpen their skill set.
Well, thank you very much. I'm telling to our younger people, brothers and sisters, that these are great work in business opportunities. We would strongly recommend that you look into it. It's readily available to you, but again, you need to step in and you need to get educated. You need to work looking for mentorship. All those great things are available, and Coaches of Influence is definitely doing a great work in walking you through these different processes or bringing resources out to your door. Now, can we go to cyber security once again? How do you see the role of Africa in the context of digital transformation, especially considering the youthful demographic of the continent?
I'm sorry, can you re-say that question? You said, how do I see?
Yes, the role of cybersecurity in the context
Africa
of our transformation.
Yeah, look, like I mentioned, right, we're moving towards this digital age, and cybersecurity is going to be critical to that, right? When we've seen in the cybersecurity field, we've seen AI being used to penetrate cybersecurity, right? And that's because AI is such a new thing that cybersecurity hasn't really caught up to that, right? And today, security researchers are trying to figure out, well, how do we make sure AI doesn't take over and, listen to our communication and, I don't know, do crazy things, right? So as we get more and more embedded into our technology, we get more close to our cell phones, our computers, right? Once again, it's important that we keep those technologies, those infrastructures secure, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say to that.
Good, great. Lots of perspective in the near future. So as a AI enthusiast, what role do you envision AI is playing in empowering African youth to create innovative solutions for local problems? That's for David.
So the youth tackling local problems. I think that statement, if you apply it in any community in the world, that's it right there. That's the holy grail. The youth resolving local problems. I'm still a youth, and I remember in my last 10 years, I would feel this influence by organizations like yours calling on to us to do all these things while attending conferences like this or panels like this. And I would always ask myself, okay, I have something in me that I can utilize based on what I'm hearing here today. Okay. In this example, then, because we're in 2023 and we are bombarded with probably the best of technology has ever been. I mean, technology is always speaking. Then the youth of today can embrace, like I mentioned in the beginning, first understanding, because right now the world is in chaos about AI, even though AI is not a brand new topic, so to speak, but in the immediate society, it's a trending topic. So if youth can, as they are noting down their local problems that they're facing, for example, water shortages in my community, for example, tribalism in my community where communities don't agree on one or two things, political election problems, other weather problems, things that cannot be resolved. If the youth can write solvable problems, unsolvable problems, and become expert in defining problems as well as understanding AI, then it would be a great moment in bridging the two together. And I think just starting from there is important because the world is still also trying to understand how they can use AI technology effectively.
So, see, David, I am not that old, but I am so resistant to AI. 'Cause every time that I log on Facebook and I see ChatGPT, I'm like, get out of my phone. So, what can you like? Because I'm techie, okay, above average, but AI is so new. At least that's the perception of it. And what can you tell to older people, my generations and my parents, about AI? How can you give us some sense of, and I guess this question to everybody, it's also addressed to all of you. Cybersecurity can give us some comfort. We need that. And then ICT, you can also maybe pinpoint to a direction on how to be intelligent about the information we're sharing online. But it's precisely about AI. Should I be afraid of ChatGPT and all these new things that are popping up every single minute? So what is that? Please give us some comfort.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first, then someone else can go second about this. It's a very trending topic, and you're not on your own about it. I will say this: go ahead and be afraid. Accept it. It's okay to be afraid. When fire was invented, when the mirror was invented, these things scared people because they took people from what they always knew into new knowledge. Having said that, are there dangers to AI? Of course. We've heard from the security expert that AI is actually a real threat because now you're dealing with intelligent threats. So there are great reasons to be scared. However, just this is where history comes in. We've always triumphed. You gotta believe in that. And when you start believing that, then what can you do? What actions can you take now? I would tell you what I did. When I started testing out AI tools, I was probably the most scared person because I saw all my work could be replaced in the next 10 to 20 years. But after being scared for 2 days, I woke up one day and I thought, wait a minute, there needs to be a human element who can control all this AI. So that's the first point that should neutralize your fear. That human intelligence is always above artificial intelligence. If that is not reason enough to not be scared, just take that home. Secondly, there are governments and great people out there pushing resources because of the same fear that you have. So I would gravitate towards those kind of news articles, and you can find them on Google. People who are working day and night to make sure that all the threats identified and can be exacerbated by the presence of AI are not only tackled right now, addressed right now, but also killed right now, for lack of a better word. Something I'm noticing though, my fear has never gone to 0%. I'm always still scared. In fact, the fact that now security people are dealing with intelligent threats scare me. But I have this belief in the ICT world in solving problems.
Okay, thank you very much. And Abdel, what can you add to that?
Um, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
It was about us, older generations, or potentially current generations, being so concerned about AI. What can you, expert in technology, tell us about it? Just to reassure or to warn? Anything you could say.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, good question. I so I have AI friends, and we're constantly having this discussion, right, on how the world's going to change just in the next 10, 20 years. Um, there is plus and there is negative, right? It all depends. It all depends what our government does, right? It all depends which direction the government take. Earlier I kind of talked about privacy laws, right? These applies to AI. When we think about AI, today AI it's very far advanced. It's advanced to a point where um, there is this belief that ChatGPT will reach what they call artificial general intelligence, and that's when it becomes human. That's when they can understand things that humans understand, right? But we've also seen, at least in the US, well, EU actually has done a very good job in terms of passing laws to make sure that ChatGPT doesn't, violate people's privacy and all of that, right? In the US, they're trying to do something similar. Um, and and I think, in the long run, we have to look at whether the government passes laws to slow down the advancement of AI, to make sure that AI doesn't replace people, right? Because the moment we get to that point, that's going to be a very difficult conversation to have, right? But there are also other nuances. There's a lot of development in technology we've seen brain chips, right, that they implant in people who couldn't walk before are able to walk now, right? So I personally think that maybe in 20, 30 years, humans are going to be able to compete with AI, with these brain technologies, right? And it's not I guess it's not a good future to look forward to, but I think the first thing we have to do is just educate people, right? The youth who are on this call today, you are the future, right? You're going to be the people who are creating these laws, right? You're going to be driving the future, right? So you have an opportunity to change the outcome of what AI can possibly do in this world.
Okay, Abdel. I don't know if you did not quiet down my heartbeat, yeah, you did not. But guys, we are having such a passionate conversation, and there's certainly so much to talk about AI and technology. And I know that Dr. Margaret would not stop at this first panel about technology. We should certainly further and deepen our thoughts in this regard. But Abu Bakr, what can you tell us about security and everything? Because we're the first one exposing our informations out there, pictures and everything that we share. So what can you add to this?
I would use the word cautiously optimistic about it. So when I say that, like Abdel and David mentioned, there are a greater reason to be scared of what AI can do. But also at the same time, we can look at beyond the fear and see what we can do to control the fear. Cybersecurity is one aspect. So when we talk about AI, there are always any types of application that you use, or there are some settings that you can look at it and see what do you want to control, what do you want to give out. All of that information, you have to look at it. So when I look at AI, I'm sometimes afraid even for my kids, right? So what you can do, you can leverage that same tool and see what is accessible at what time and when. You try to set up some control around it. But shying away from it, I don't think that would be the solution, because they make our lives so much easier. Like if we take energy efficiency, I use those tools to make my consumption of electricity way less. When I step out of my house, my AC adjusts itself automatically. I'm 2 kilometers from my house. Automatically, the system knows that I'm not home, and then my AC is adjusted so that the consumption lowers. So I don't have to think. My memory is not that great of remembering everything. My kids are lights at home. When I wake up in the morning, I have a setup time at 7 o'clock. All the lights are off. I don't have to worry about my electricity bill going up, right? Because I forgot to turn off the lights. I can be in Africa and then turn off all my lights, and also set up some programming. Lights or turn on by themselves at 7 p.m. and they turn off at 6 a.m. Those are cost saving that AI is facilitating to me. If I were to be afraid of it, maybe I wouldn't take advantage of that. I can water my grass anywhere in the world using my cell phone. So some of the advantage that you have to look at it, but the security aspect, like we can rely on people to guide us better, so we make sure that we don't give out things that we do not want.
That's a great closing statement. And I do believe that we definitely have to do this again. We've reached the end of our conversation. Great information being shared. I just wanted to go back and shout out to all these people from Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube that were connected, sending out love and beautiful comments. And shout out to Sadibu Saho. He had left such interesting questions on here, but I am so sorry we didn't get to it. And here we have that beautiful Margaret popping up to just kick us out of here. But guys, we are so thankful for everyone who's been attending virtually and all these speakers that are here today. Thank you very much. We are all set for now on this panel.
All right, all right, all right. We have just heard from the tech panel. And shall we say they have delivered? Can I see some emojis? Can I see a reaction from our viewers? Emojis, hearts. I want to see thumbs up. I want to see the waves, the hand claps. They have really delivered. Thank you so much, Marguerite Correa. And Marguerite is from Senegal. Abdel is from Mali. David is from Kenya, and Abubakar is from Burkina Faso. These are the sons and the daughters of Africa that are making Africa the tree of life, because they are all in the US and they are doing great and mighty things. And wherever they step, people recognize them as the children of Mama Africa. We are so proud of you. Thank you so much. We've had a deep conversation, and yes, we're not going to ignore the questions. They are coming, and they are important questions. So Marguerite, we will thank you for being here. Thank you for being such a great moderator. Thank you, Marguerite, for being so flexible and passionate about the work that COIF is doing. Marguerite, circumstances led you here. You reached out at the very last moment, and with excitement, you accepted the invitation. You provided everything we needed right there, because you love Mama Africa and you love everything about Africa. And we thank you for being such a great and a citizen of Senegal, representing Senegal in the USA and globally. We thank you so much, Marguerite. The panelists are not going anywhere. They'll stay with me so we can go through a few questions. But Marguerite, as a moderator, we will release you and we will go ahead and go through our questions. Can we all appreciate Marguerite? Can we see thumbs up? Can we see high fives? Yay, Marguerite. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you, Marguerite. Have a wonderful day in Connecticut and continue to be an ambassador of Senegal in the USA and globally. Thank you, Marguerite. So now, panelists, we are going to stay right here because we have a few questions that I believe are already popping up on the screen. And we have a question from Jacob. And Jacob says, do you need strong math background in order to pursue a cybersecurity career? That is for you, Abdel. Do you need math? Because I don't know math. So when you talk tech, I kind of exempt myself from that because I didn't pass math in school. So do I need math to step into this career, or can I jump right in today?
Hey, Jacob, you and me are both on the same boat. No math, right? When you look at cybersecurity, it has like hundreds of branches, right? And only one branch is really engineering. Only one branch is you need to know engineering, you need to know math, right? But that's just one branch. It's like hundreds of other branches, right? So no, you don't need math to know cybersecurity. In fact, even in the engineering side, you don't need too much math. Yeah. So if you're able to read something and understand it, that's a very good start. You can join a lot of different fields in cybersecurity.
All right. Thank you, Abdel. That response is very comforting. And I believe that I'm going to start considering walking into the cybersecurity field, because as a mother, my instinct tells me I need to protect. I need to protect myself. I need to protect my children. I need to protect the many children that are connected to me. So it's good that I don't need math, so I can start considering to start stepping into cybersecurity. Thank you so much for that. Do we have another question, producers? I know we have another question. In the meantime, whilst we're waiting on the questions, for those of you who are watching and you may not have followed the entire conversation and you're wondering what are they talking about, I have some highlights from the tech panel that I will share with you to get you caught up. But we have a question from Sadibu. Sadibu says, a follow-up question. What are some of the best practices in protecting ourselves and some of the information we share with people in our network from intruders? How do we protect ourselves? We have WhatsApp. We have all kinds of applications on our phones. We are sending our voices. We are sending pictures. How do we protect ourselves? I believe, too, that this is also a cybersecurity question.
I think there's so many, right? There's so many things I can dive into right now. I want to say, check out our website, csnp.org. We have a lot of resources on there on just how do you stay safe online. So I guess maybe basic things, keep your software up to date, right? If you have a smart device, your phone, your computer, your the thermostat that's connected to the internet, right? You want to keep all of those things up to date, because the moment they have a software vulnerability, someone like me sitting in my home can just access your house. You don't want that, right? You don't want that. So keep your software up to date. And when we talk about WhatsApp, right? I'm not a big fan of Facebook because I know Facebook, their privacy is not good, right? Facebook owns WhatsApp, right? I would encourage people to use Signal. Signal is open source. It's not funded by any corporation. It's a free app, just like WhatsApp. They don't sell your data, right? So the communication you have within WhatsApp, that communication information is going other places. People may not be aware of that. Yeah.
Wow. That's scary. And there are some people, some families, people in the same house now in Africa who are not speaking to each other. They speak on voice, WhatsApp. They will be in one room and send the spouse a message on WhatsApp in the next room. And he listens and he shoots a response back to them in the same building. Because we have families now don't call each other to check on each other. It's just perfect to just send a voice to your sister that you haven't spoken to for a week and just say, hey, I'm checking on you. How are you? By the way, I just wanted to let you know I've traveled. I'm in India. And then sister responds back and said, oh, I just arrived in UK. I also have traveled, so we'll talk to each other later. And then that's about it. And then the sisters receive from that point on is photos of each other's travel, but we are not talking to each other. So that information that we are recording, that information we are texting, this is why COIF restricts any of our mentees from sending any documents on WhatsApp. Because when you send it on WhatsApp, it's going places and you have no idea where that information is going. It's being sold to someone. Someone is spying on you because they know where you live. They know everything about you. So as we talk about youth being equipped with digital skills, this is what we're talking about. You need to be a good citizen and practice safety on the internet and safety with the digital platform. All right, great. We have one. I'll just take this one last question, and this is also on cybersecurity. But I also want you, David and Buba, to also respond to this because this is all in the tech world. So the question is about cybersecurity. What is the role of critical thinking? But we are talking about other fields here. We are talking about ICT. We are talking about AI. We're talking about systems analysts. So we want to know what kind of thinking mentality do African youth need to have to prepare themselves for these careers? They cannot depend on just what mom says and dad says. They cannot depend on what their mentor or the one they are following on Facebook says. What role does critical thinking play in your careers? So I'll have Abdel go first, and I'll hear from David and hear from Buba.
Yeah, I was gonna say critical thinking plays everywhere, right? ICT, AI, and much beyond. I think in this new world, you need critical thinking to survive, right? It doesn't have to be cybersecurity. But when we talk about critical thinking and cybersecurity, it means the ability to come up with new ideas, right? To be kind of like innovative, right? To be able to apply ICT and AI to cybersecurity. What does that mean? And be able to almost like predict the future, right? Just looking at emerging technologies, what roles are they going to play? And as more and more technology emerges, we know that the one thing they're going to need is cybersecurity, right? So critical thinking is very essential.
Thank you very much, Abdel. Can we hear from David and then from Buba? Critical thinking. What do we need to tell the youth today about critical thinking? How do they develop their critical thinking skills, and why is it relevant in these careers that you are in?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And kudos for picking the quality of critical thinking and tying it with cybersecurity. You need critical thinking mostly because your threats and adversaries are also thinking critically how to get your money, to get your password and access. Therefore, your role in critical thinking should be read more about it, get a degree in critical thinking. When you're done with cybersecurity, just develop your critical thinking skills. So, for example, governments, how can they think critically about the threats of for example, AI or cybersecurity threats? They can think from a broader perspective, from a policy perspective, not just, oh, let's react to threats. For example, in Kenya, there was an incident where a national university website was hacked for about 1 week, and the hacker was posting unmentionable stuff on there. And it was kind of a national shame. And there was meetings by the government officials, which were the laughing stock of Twitter and all that. And not saying that there were no solutions that came out of those talks, but it was the fact that there was no policy before this kind of attacks, national policy that can be there ready to counter this kind of problems. Just two more points. Those are governments. Companies can think critically how they're handling their customers' data. Really, really think critically. For example, what my colleagues just said, if you're going to use WhatsApp in your company as a messaging platform, think about that exchange of data from your customers to your employees and what that entails, and whether you want to take the risk of having all that information being fed anywhere else out there that you have no idea. Therefore, I've written down Signal, and I'm gonna go read about it. I did not know that, even though I'm in IT. Third and finally, individuals. Individuals can think critically about their own sense of security, right? For example, you wouldn't go to bed leaving your door just wide open, right? You'd make sure the door is locked. You double check it's locked, and then you go to bed. You come in the morning, you make sure was the door locked. Those kind of checks. So individuals can, as you're going through your devices and your tasks and activities, think critically. If you get that message with a suspicious link, do you really want to click on it? Even though you're African, you were taught to be nice to strangers. Do you just want to be nice to all these threats that are coming on email? Just think critically. It's okay to be African and loving, but it's okay to also think critically that there are threats and they are real and they're out there.
Thank you very much, David. Buba?
All right, very good. So that's very good question. So I think they've covered most of it already. So I'm going to have the critical thought process in 3 dimensions to think about it if you want to develop the critical thinking. So think of your critical thoughts should be oriented while the data is at rest. You have the data store. How do you think about its protection when it is stored? That's one dimension. And the second dimension, how do you think about the critical security of your data while it's being transmitted? So, and the transmission is today it's mainly internet. You are sending information from one location to another location. Think about it. Is my information safer while it is being transmitted? I have information. The first one, my first dimension, when I say at rest, you have it on your computer locally. How do you think about it? Is there any threat around it? Or in a flash drive, is there any threat that I can think about it? And the last dimension is while it's being processed. So when you have your critical thought process, think about those three dimensions: data as rest, data being transmitted, and also data being processed. Those are the three dimensions. And to give one example of a huge security breach in Africa, African Union. We heard that there was one government that was collecting every data, all of the meeting being discussed in African Union at real time. Nighttime, while the information is being stored, they are collecting the information from Africa to one country somewhere in the world. I'm not going to name the name, but you can check it. African Union has been has witnessed that security breach.
Wow.
So when you look at it, it was either while the information was stored or while they were processing the information from their own server to somewhere else. So that same lesson can be applied on our own life. Your cell phone, what information do you want to keep stored in there? And when you're sending information to people, what are you comfortable sending? Let's think about all of those aspects. Our kids as well, let's think about when we give them tablet, how do we control it?
Right.
Even if it is not connected to the internet, what do you want information to be stored on the tablet? Certain types of picture, you don't want them, right? Certain types of communication, you don't want them. So let's think about all of those aspects when we think about critical thinking. That's all I
Thank you
have to add.
very much. Thank you very much, sirs. This is so profound. So, Africa's youth listening, this is about equipping you with skills. I think what the panelists are sharing with you, even the threats, even what you need to know, they are all skills that you didn't have before. How do you manage your life? Those of you who are sending voice messages, we all know that in Africa, people don't respect anyone. When they are part of a group, it means that everything discussed in that group can end up somewhere else. People forward people's voice messages, people forward people's pictures everywhere. So when you are sharing, sending your voice messages, when you are sending messages and photos and images to people you call your friend, people you think can be trusted, how trusted, how trustworthy are they? And do you know where that information ends? If your information now could be in another country trending somewhere, somebody could be making money out of your photos, making money out of your resume that you sent to someone via WhatsApp. So we have to be careful. We have to take time. I just wanted to, whilst the gentlemen are here before we release them, to just share some highlights that I got from the panel that you can walk away with. You cannot walk away from this panel not remembering that careers in the fields that they are talking about right now can earn you international employment opportunities. You don't have to shift from where you are. You don't have to get in a boat and die in the waters. You don't have to go around other ways to get a visa and end up in a country where you cannot settle down because you didn't come the right way. You didn't come through the right door. You don't have to do any of that. You can be right where you are with a laptop in front of you, with career, with skills and education in any of these fields, and you can earn you a job. And in fact, somebody sent me a job yesterday from the USC farm, and they said, we want you to help us to recruit youth that can work with us, and they will be working for a company in the US whilst they are in Africa. That's what we are talking about. But who are these youth going to be? Who should I recruit? Do you have the skills? Are you educated in those fields? Are you teaching yourself? Because we cannot rely on the educational system in Africa. In our hospitals today, when we talk about privacy, we have patient information on paper flying around the world. People that are selling beignet outside the hospital are using hospital patient papers to wrap the beignet and give it to you. Whilst you're eating it, you open the paper, you see the name of the patient, you see the medicine that was prescribed for them, because we don't understand the importance of information. So to develop yourself. The world is looking into this statement. When I heard it, it got to me. The world is looking into Africa, is what Abdel said, because very soon Africa will have the youngest population. What does this mean? My takeaway is that we should prepare. We should equip the youth with the necessary skills to prepare you for you to be able to solve the problems, because the major aspect of the world's problems in the next 10 years will be centered around technology, will be centered around the digital environment. So are you equipped, Africa's youth? If we're going to be the youngest and the most robust population, are we equipped to answer questions? Are we equipped to be able to solve the problems of the world when they bring it to us? The more we use technology, the more we should be aware of what we are exposed to. Responsibility is the key. That's a takeaway. And then this last one is, how ready is Africa? Africa's youth, are you ready for the global technology and the global the digital transformation? We need to take greater steps to be fully prepared. For the world to outsource jobs to Africa and operations to Africa, we need robust internet connectivity. Oh my goodness. As I speak now, somebody is not here in this platform because of internet. Somebody that was watching has just been kicked out. Somebody that is trying to frustrated right now because they cannot even log in, they cannot even hear, they cannot even send a message. If we are going to be the world's solution, we need to be equipped, we need to be prepared. And what amazes me is that Africa's leaders are leading from the air. What I mean is that they are constantly traveling. The airports in Africa are jammed. International airports are jammed with Africans dragging suitcases, and they are from the president down to the teacher. And everybody is traveling, and they're constantly going to summits, and they're going to forums, and they're going to meetings. So what profit is all these activities yielding for Africa, especially in the area of technology? We are addressing you, the young people, because you are the present day influencers, and you are moving into those seats. So are you just also going to lead from the air, or are you going to get grounded and really lead Africa? And with the world going digital, cybersecurity is vital. With Africans, even in the most remote villages today, every old man, old woman, young person has a phone. They have a device in their hand. And you are the present day influencers, but are you educated about those devices in your hand? Are we just consumers and not creators? We need to think about that. Change how you see your career. Technology will be taking human jobs. You heard from the AI person. David told us that very soon, in the 10 years, he was afraid that very soon he will be irrelevant. Very soon, if David in the USA, with all the education and skills and experience and exposure that David has, David is worried that he'll be redundant. How about you, who is only taught, who is an IT graduate and have never touched a computer? You're an IT graduate, but you don't know computer parts. You know it in your head, but when we set the system before you, you don't even know how to start it. Are you worried? Are you worried that you're going to be redundant? Are you worried that your PhD that you're pursuing right now is not going to be needed very soon? So these are the things that and that we need to walk away from. We need to be inventors. Thank you, gentlemen. We have more questions coming, but we have completely out of time. We need to welcome the next panel. We appreciate you. We'll keep in touch. Thank you so much. Can you help me to appreciate our speakers? Abdel, thank you. Keep doing the great work in cybersecurity. David, keep doing what you're doing in AI. And David, fight for us. Tell them AI cannot take over. We have to be in charge. All right. Buba, thank you so much for what you do. And Buba, that tip you shared about the AC and the lights, you will get a call from my husband because we need to set that in our house. Thank you so much for sharing that tip. Thank you so much, gentlemen. You have a great weekend. We are getting ready to actually welcome our next panel. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, viewers, we are ready to hear from the diversity and inclusion panel. But I want to know, are you excited? Are you excited as we get ready to introduce our diversity and inclusion panel? Are you excited? Are you excited? Show some excitement in the house. Show some excitement in the house. Show some excitement in the house. We are talking about Africa's youth. We are talking about the dynamic, the life, the vein of Africa. You are the vein of Africa. You are the children of Mama Africa that will make Africa a tree of life. I wanted to show that life on this platform right now. This is Influence Africa Youth Forum, and this forum is a meal. We serve a meal. This is a restaurant. We serve meals in this forum, and we have been fed, and we have been equipped, and we have gathered knowledge for sustainable development of the continent of Africa. And now we are ready to welcome the next panel, and this is the diversity and inclusion panel. Please turn your attention to the video as we introduce our panelists and our moderator. Thank you. I believe that we are experiencing technical challenges there with bringing the video on. So I will go ahead and start continue to let's see what more questions you have, because even after this session, we can always send your questions to the panelists. We can always have them send a response back. So send those questions in. Send your excitement in. Tell us how excited you are. Tell us what you are learning. We are all excited and we are ready. And I know the tech panel, the diversity panel, they are ready.
Margaret Korea is a...
All right, we are having technical. We're talking about equipping Africa's youth with digital skills. Digital skills, this tech world is going to be a big problem for the world. And we need Africa's youth to arise with the skills needed to solve the problems. We are here. You can see it now. We are ready for our video presentation and we are having hurdles in the way, but very soon, be patient. All right, I see something loading, it's coming. Be patient, there we are.
Abdul Karim Baji is a highly talented and motivated individual with a strong passion for technology, entrepreneurship, digital inclusion, and diplomacy. Currently, Abdul Karim serves as an assistant project manager for the Gambia Tech Project and has previously worked as a digital inclusion intern for the International Telecommunication Union, the United Nations Agency for Information and Communication Technologies. He has undergone leadership training through various programs and has held key positions, including being the current Secretary General and former Under Secretary General for Political Affairs for Coaches United Nations Simulation, Student Ambassador and Commissioner of the University of the Gambia, CRC, former Research Minister and Vice President of the School of Information Technology and Communication Association, among other noble roles. Please join us to welcome Honorable Abdul Karim Baji, the moderator for the Diversity and Inclusion panel.
Jacqueline Pachin was born in the United States. She has a bachelor's degree in linguistics and a master's in applied linguistics. She has also lived as a volunteer English teacher in southern China and has volunteered with visually impaired students in China as well as the Gambia and Mexico. Her interests include travel, technology, and helping those less fortunate. She currently works as an accessibility tester for the Quality Logic Company in the United States. Please help us welcome Jacqueline Pachin to the Influence Africa Youth Forum in celebration of International Youth Day 2023. Kriti Ramaswamy recently completed her Master's in Sociology and Anthropology at the Graduate Institute for International and Development Studies in Geneva. During her studies, she engaged with various aspects of digital technologies and transformations. Particularly as a digital inclusion and ICT accessibility intern with the International Communication Union, she worked on the need for holistic digital inclusion for vulnerable and marginalized groups. A sociologist and anthropologist by training, Kriti believes in the need to examine digital inclusion strategies from a contextually specific perspective. Please make welcome Kriti Ramaswamy, a panelist of the Diversity and Inclusion panel. Musi Kiari. As a dynamic and influential speaker, Musi Kiari is sought after to enrich, equip and establish women and young minds to be esteemed and empowered to maximize their potential and to walk in their purpose. She is passionate about the things of God. Her mission is to be used of Him for His special and specific purpose, to shine His light, to share His love, and to shape His people. Musi is the president of Coaches of Influence Foundation, an international organization which is committed to helping individuals, groups, nations, and organizations to pursue and achieve their purpose and meet their ultimate goals through positive influence coaching, teaching, and modeling. She also serves on the board of directors for the Destiny Women Capital, an organization that provides strategic oversight and guidance for women entrepreneurs in Kenya in creating value propositions on different socio-economic landscapes. Please welcome the president of Coaches of Influence Foundation, Musi Kiari, to the Diversity and Inclusion panel.
Abdul, I don't think we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. And Musi, once again, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Hurry up.
So thank you all for joining this. What I hope is actually going to be a very interesting and engaging panel, given by the fact that we have all heard from the previous panel when they have been consistently sharing that we live in a global village where technology is shaping every aspect of our lives, from the way we transact and do businesses to the health sector, or even having to use artificial intelligence to be kind of managing managing remotely our houses and whatever it should be done. So this actually tends to kind of pose a lot of questions as to what we need to do to ensure that each and every individual, regardless of your gender, regardless of your ability or location, is actually involved in this digital transformation process. But statistics are there telling us that almost 15% of the global population actually lives with some form of disability. And this is approximately 1.1 billion people. What are we doing to ensure that those people are actually not left behind? And they're equally telling us that almost about 70% of these even individuals, most of them are not even aware perhaps that they actually have disabilities. So as we navigate the critical discourse, let us also reflect on the sobering statistics that underscore the urgency of our mission. In an era where information is power, how do we empower those that are marginalized by digital divides? What is considered the potential of innovation? Can we truly innovate if we leave behind a significant portion of our population? And due to barriers of access and understanding. So to discuss this, obviously, my esteemed panelists hold the answers. And in this journey, we would uncover the insight for a more and inclusive digital inclusion. So I would first actually start with Kriti. Kriti, you have been working with the International Telecommunication Union, which is the United Nations Agency for Information and Communication Technologies. And based on your experience, you have seen the impact of digital inclusion on young people, women, girls, and underprivileged communities, in fact. So could you please share with us or provide some few examples on how this impact translates into the social and economic development?
Sure. Firstly, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this panel. This is really great to be here and to hear all these interesting discussions, and I'm just very happy to be here. So thank you. Coming to your question, while I was working with the International Telecommunications Union, we did do a lot of work on digital inclusion for groups that are more vulnerable or more marginalized, whether that is people with disabilities, women and girls, indigenous communities, and older people who are particularly vulnerable in the digital world that we are living in. And I think something that I took from my experience with the ITU was that digital inclusion is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's something you can't apply policies or strategies that have worked in one place to another place and expect it to work just as well. So the things that have worked for digital inclusion have been very contextually specific, have been driven by an understanding of local cultures, of customs, and by involving the people in the communities themselves. And some things that have worked, for example, when we talk about digital inclusion for older people, which is something that I was working very closely with when I was at the ITU, there were certain initiatives that were brought up in countries like Japan, for example, which do have older populations. And there it was also very context driven, where they actually spoke to older people, and some of the initiatives that were taken up by various NGOs and by the government were collaborative efforts with the community and with the group that was being impacted. And so I think that is very important when we talk about how digital inclusion strategies should be done with the community rather than for the community. And I think that is when we really see the impact on other social and economic indicators, because digital inclusion is very tied to these to other aspects of our lives. And I think when we try to include people in a meaningful way, then it's something that really shows. So yeah.
So absolutely, I totally agree with you. And then just to buttress a little bit on your statement, not a one-size-fits-all approach, because what might work for younger people, particularly when it comes to putting up policies to ensure that they are digitally included, might actually not work for older women, might also perhaps not work for persons with disabilities. So that's always important that whenever we come up with policies or strategies to ensure digital inclusion, we ensure that we have all these people on the table to be able to ensure or to put up policies that actually involve their decision as well as their recommendations moving forward. So thank you so much, Kriti. So Jacqueline, you are next. So just to building on Kriti's insights, can you share your experience or interactions with individuals who have disabilities and their use of technology? Jacqueline, are you here? If you're speaking, we can't hear you. Okay, so whilst we are waiting for Jacqueline, I think I will move on to Musi. So Musi, African nations must allocate resources imperatively towards cultivating the potential, education and occupational opportunities for burgeoning young population, with a particular focus on individuals with disabilities. What strategies can be employed to ensure the fulfillment of these objectives?
Thank you, Abdul Karim. I appreciate this question, and thank you guys for having me. This has been such a wonderful morning. My house is full of tech people, and as I was listening through and just picking up a whole lot that even what I see every day. So anyway, so thank you for having me here. And in the spirit of being inclusive, I'll take a moment to describe myself. I'm a Black female wearing Black framed glasses and a mustard yellow dress. My hair is dreadlocked and is held up in a two-band hairstyle. So the questions you ask is very pivotal, and it forces us to look at data, number one, right? So you said it. There's approximately 8 billion people in the world, and 15% of that global population is living with some form of disability. And according to the World Economic Forum, by 2030, our Africans, right, are expected to constitute 42% of the global youth. And if my math serves me right, what does that mean? They were looking at least 500 million youth with disability. So taking that 15% and using that against the 42 of the global youth. And let that sink in, 500 million youth with disabilities. I will also add another important statistic that is very personal to me, and that I'm raising a son, a Black male with a hidden disability. So now let's just park that data to the side and let's talk about what are we seeing today from whether it's education, employment of our youth, especially those with disabilities, right? And it starts from the grassroots level. If I was to pause the question on this, whether chat, Instagram, whatever mediums, and ask how many of you have a family member or know somebody with a disability, many of you would raise your hands, right? But if I turned around and asked, how, of those people you know, do they have a job? What is their skill set, right? Many of the hands would be lowered. And as a community, we don't talk about disabilities at our dinner tables. or out in the community. And it is time that we start to have those conversations beyond just creating awareness, but truly honing in on that talent and the skill set that the disability community has. And I really wish I would have followed what Jackie was going to respond to, because it takes us more deeper into the technology world and the disability space and how that all intersects, and how Africa, as much as it's lagging behind, it still has ways to go, but it started doing something. So real quick, if we step outside our communities and get into the workforce, there's a huge opportunity gap that's always growing. So think about the population increase of this youth and the demand for the participation in the workforce. And many of these youth have resorted to being creative and use their innate ability to tap into the potential in all those areas. However, many of the youth still need help, right? Especially the youth with disabilities. And we have to start addressing those the issues. So these are the challenges that we see in some of the strategies that we can employ in education, in employment, and entrepreneurship. So number one, educators and policymakers, they need to start closing that opportunity gap in providing either government scholarships for youth with disabilities, because many people with disabilities are solution architects. They have learned to be innovative and creative enough to navigate a world that wasn't created for them, right? The world is not accessible. It's full of barriers, whether it's structural barriers or even opportunities. And they have found ways and innovative ways that make great quality assurance and quality check for many roles. Second thing, for employers, whether it's in the private sector or in government, they need to partner with colleges and universities in collaborative efforts and engage in internship opportunities. This creates avenues for employment opportunities. And I'd argue that scores of universities have their heads down in educating in theory, but do very little in the hands-on, like the real work. So many sectors tend to be at arm's length in trying to foster meaningful partnerships, which further widen the employment gap. So part of that solution would be to have employers need to shape the curriculum of some universities. You all heard, for those that joined the tech panel and listened to that, I think it was Abdel that talked about, by the time he graduated from college, technology was way ahead. It's time to understand that some of these, the private sector, the employers, they need to inform the universities. What are the jobs for the future? Is that curriculum going to be as a competitive advantage in 2 to 3 years? If not, modify the curriculum, right? Example, technology is always evolving. And so we need to keep up with that as we change some of those, the criteria. And last but not least, when we talk about entrepreneurship, right? When you look at trade and investment forums, even for people with disabilities, especially our youth, remove the barriers and allow for disability-owned business enterprises to have a stake in competing on the market. Many people with disabilities, youth with disabilities, they end up being self-employed, and yet a very small percentage of them get to compete in various markets. And so it is imperative for us to collectively endeavor towards establishment of skills development systems, right, that are not only pertinent to what we see every day, but we need to encompass technology and the vocational education and training, the TVET, as well as higher education. And it is necessary, right? It is necessary for proficiencies and resources to have this in the workplace, because the potential consequences of abstaining and implementing these reforms will be so substantial. And so it is imperative that we do not falter at this juncture. So I think I'll pause there.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that insight, Musi. I think that was a very great response. And one thing that you said, which was actually very scary, which you said by 2030, almost about 500 million young people would live with a form of disability. So what are we going to do for them? Because they are part of us. And this wasn't something that they actually choose, but this is something that they actually have to accept to live with. And it is important that we ensure that whatever policies or strategies that we are actually going to formulate would also include them. And then you talked about the educational aspect as well, because most of them, for example, do lose hope at some point that, okay, fine, I have this kind of disability. Maybe perhaps there's no hope for me, or maybe perhaps there's not going to be that kind of work for me. But it's also important that if, for example, government institutions and other relevant organizations are actually, for example, whenever they're allocating, let's say, for example, sponsorship programs, they can say, okay, fine, 15 or 25% of these particular, for example, component of the scholarship is going to be awarded to persons with disabilities. I think this is actually going to give them hope that, okay, these people care, and then now it is up to us to take up the responsibility and the challenge to make a difference. And a few days ago, I was actually listening to a podcast. The ITU has a podcast called the ITU Technology for Good. And there was this lady who was actually sharing her experience. She said she lived with a form of disability, and then one day she was in class, and then her lecturer had to say, okay, fine, the answer you provided is actually correct, but how were you able to provide this answer knowing fully well that you're actually a person with disability? And this actually have to do with how being able to use, for example, let's say digital platforms or digital technologies. And then from there, with that spirit and hope, she realized that she's not alone. She have other people that she also need to bring along. And what she did was to just go out and then establish her own foundation, of which she started helping and training other people on how to use digital technologies, etc. So I think it is really important that we think along those lines, especially when it comes to building partnerships and collaborations like you mentioned, and then providing internship programs, because at the end, it is not always about the theory, but how best we can also incorporate the practical experience so that they get the first-hand information to be able to navigate into the technology world. So I think this was a great response, and I'm glad that I actually brought you up before even Jacqueline would come in, because Jacqueline, if you can hear me now, your question is, can you share your experience? Because I understand that you have been working with different organizations and institutions, and especially with persons with disabilities. So based on your experience and expertise, can you please share your interaction with individuals who have disabilities and their use of technology? Is Jacqueline here with us?
I don't see it on the screen, and I'm not sure. She's not on the feed. No, she's not. She's not on there.
Okay, so it is okay. I think we can come. She can come in later. So okay, she's back.
Yeah, she just joined. Sorry about that.
Okay, okay. So Jacqueline, can you hear me? Oh, she dropped. So Kriti, I would come back to you. In your view, what specific challenges and opportunities do women and girls encounter when it comes to accessing and utilizing digital technologies? And how can we address these challenges effectively?
Yeah, thank you. I think the digital gender divide is something that we would like to think is closing. And while it's true that more and more people across the globe and more women and men across the globe are getting more connected to the internet, I think it's important to recognize that there is still a long way to go in a lot of ways. For some people, the challenges to bridging the digital divide can be in terms of simple access and affordability to just devices, to not having smartphones, to not having laptops, or to not having the connectivity, or living in places which are remote. And that can be a form of a digital divide. For some other people, it can be not having the skills or the education that is needed to equip themselves to be able to use technology adequately in a way that benefits themselves and allows them to use it in ways that can help them in their careers and in their lives. And for other people, it can be challenges that are faced when they do go online. And for example, sexual harassment online, cyberbullying, these are all challenges that unfortunately women have to deal with in general on a larger scale than men do. And digital technologies, when they are not monitored properly or when they're not used cautiously, can sometimes lead to very adverse consequences, such as the ones that I highlighted. So those are some of the challenges that are faced by women, and that is generally what is meant by the digital gender divide. But I think it's also, when we talk about the challenges that women and girls specifically face to accessing digital technologies, it's also because there are certain deeper structural problems and structural barriers that are faced, which lead to then a lesser access to digital technologies. And what I mean by that is that generally educational opportunities, cultural stigma, norms, all of these things generally prevent girls and women across the world in different context, from having the same access and the same opportunities to learning that.
I don't think you guys realize these streaming things sometimes don't always
Sorry,
work.
I think Jacqueline is joining again.
Oh, am I working now?
I can hear you.
Is it working?
I think,
okay,
yeah.
sorry. I'm
Yes,
complaining
it
about
is
my
working,
phone
but
being so old and
perhaps
not working. Okay, I will mute
it is
myself now that it's working.
absolutely. Thank you so much for your efforts, and thank you for joining us once again.
Yeah,
So
sorry, my
quickly,
phone is really old. I tried another phone that's newer, and what you guys said it wasn't working, so I went back to my really old phone that glitches and has a lot of issues with the screen reader.
at the end, this is technology for us, but I hope and pray that it will be sorted out. So thank you. You may mute yourself for the meantime, and then Kriti, you can continue, please.
Yeah, so as I was saying, we can't look at the digital gender divide as a separate issue to tackle because it's embedded in existing structures of inequality. So, for example, when we talk about digital financial literacy, for example, and this is something that a lot of women don't have access to, it is also because of the fact that women and girls in general have been told or have been kept separate from access to financial literacy beforehand. So there are fewer opportunities, and I am saying all of this in a very general sense, and there are of course exceptions and there are nuances to all of this, but the point is that if we can't have tech fixes to solve everything, so if we only try to look at ways to bridge the digital gender divide rather than looking at ways to bridge the gender divide as a whole, I think that is what is necessary, because because barriers and challenges to accessing technology is rooted in structural barriers that have existed for a very, very long time. And it's only by addressing the root cause of these problems that we can actually get somewhere positive. So.
Most definitely. I totally agree with you, Kriti. And I think that was a very relevant and interesting response, because when you look at it into perspective, the goal here is not, because when you talk about digital inclusion, like we would usually say, it's not about, for example, ensuring that one segment of society is actually included. Let's say, for example, person with disabilities. But we also understand that women are a component of that digital inclusion landscape. Older persons are a component of that digital inclusion landscape, children, older persons, etc., etc. And even for people who actually lived with, let's say, who live in underprivileged communities. So thank you so much for sharing those insights. And I think just to add on to what you have already said, the awareness part of it is also very important, because let's say, for example, most women per se or children culturally are actually kind of shaped into that component where they actually made to believe that maybe perhaps technology is too difficult. We have we actually had Jacob did ask a question here not long ago from the other panel, where he was asking whether someone does require a lot of like, for example, someone does actually requires a huge knowledge when it comes to mathematics to be able to navigate into the cybersecurity field. So these are some of the kind of barriers that are actually imposed on, let's say, for example, women among other people. But I believe through awareness and then having platforms like this, where we would actually discourse and then try to create that awareness to ensure that women are actually included in, for example, whatever policies that are needed for them to contribute into the digital landscape and then take technology as a field of their choice, regardless. So, Jacqueline, thank you once again for joining us. So just to draw you back a little bit, I understand that you have been a person who have actually been working with persons with disabilities, and then you have you're equally a software tester among others. So can you share your experience and your expertise when it comes to interactions with individuals who have disabilities and then their use of technology?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, like I said, this thing it's really old. The battery's dying, and when the battery dies, the phone slows down and the screen reader stops working. So in the past, my expertise, I guess, I have not officially studied, I don't have a degree in any kind of technical field, but I've studied a lot of different screen readers and different devices. And this is something that interests me especially with traveling abroad using
Jacqueline, are you there?
Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, I do not like this phone.
It is okay.
So, like I was saying, I'm interested in what people with similar disabilities to me use in other parts of the world, and learning what I can learn from those people to apply to my life, and especially with teaching, as I was an English teacher in China and volunteered in other countries as well.
So thank you so much, Jacqueline. Perhaps you can mute yourself for now. And just to build on what Jacqueline was saying, because like, for example, when you look at all these technologies that are actually coming up, they have standards that they need to follow. And one of the standards would be, for example, the Doubletree consortium that they need to follow, because at the end, when you're building platform, you're not all the, you actually want to, we are looking at, for example, having kind of an inclusive end user experience. And that would involve, for example, integrating accessibility features. Let's say, for example, if the person cannot read or write, perhaps the person is actually able to record a voice message and then send it. And that's why we actually have perhaps one of the features on WhatsApp where you're able to record a voice message and then send it to the next person, even if you cannot read or write or even understand how to use those particular technologies. And today, for example, when you go to the ATM, sometimes you don't necessarily need to be that kind of educated person. But then again, you would even hear the ATM actually reading for you. And then from there, you just have to follow the steps as to what you need to do next to be able to use those particular platforms. On even our, for example, on our Android devices, we have accessibility features that are actually integrated into these platforms. Because at the end, before these platforms are actually taken out there to the market, they need to go through certain processes or certain tests to be able to pass the accessibility standard test before they're actually taken out of the market. So all these are kind of examples that persons with disability would actually need to make use of. And sometimes you don't even necessarily need to be a person with disability to be able to use these particular applications. Let's say, for example, even the Microsoft Office application that you're using on your laptop. Today, it has accessibility features. When you are tired of typing, all that you need to do is to turn on the dictate button and then also speak. And it will write everything that you actually wanted to write. So technology is here actually to make life easier for us and make it accessible and for us to be able to use it effectively and efficiently. So we just have to leverage it. So next, I will come back to you, Musi. The strategic allocation of resources towards the development of young skills is crucial for the collective trajectory of our shared future. What are some of the key factors involved in ensuring that this is accomplished?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very good question, Abdu. And just to piggyback off of what you've shared, because I feel like I feel like saying this, and I need to say this so that our viewers and those in the audience and the attendees can hear, in the sense that technology has really evolved because of people with disabilities, right? You talked about the ATM and somebody reading back to you. We also have Braille on the ATM. The fact that you have, the ability to speak and it types out. This is all came because of solutions that our people with disabilities or the disability community were able to innovate. And so when you think about some of the resources, right, the question that you asked is, like, it would be a good impetus for policymakers and employers in various fields to begin to ask many questions. One question, one of them would be, okay, what would be the implications if the nations of Africa were to engage in a process of reimagining, realigning, and recommitting to the development of skills among the youth in Africa, and especially youth with disabilities, right? So when you pause on that question, like, what would it take? Right. And so immediately you're forced to think about, okay, these are the problems that Africa is going through. Right. It's okay to acknowledge, not being naive to the fact that, okay, there's probably lack of sufficient opportunities for young people with disabilities. The skill development programs are probably not there. They either have high quality, aligned in market demands, maybe not accessible. there are obstacles that do arise because of maybe, well, lack of comprehensive data on the job market, employability. Like we can throw every reason on the wall and it will stick for us to not think differently, right? To not reimagine or realign. And so one of the things that I've and Kriti, you talked about the digital divide, right? So when you think about the advanced digital, whether it's a certification, the basic, intermediate, advanced digital skills, like there's a necessity for highly skilled professionals, engineers, technicians, our folks in ICT, who possess both the technical expertise and then also people with disabilities, the adaptive, cognitive, and socioeconomic, or rather socio-emotional skills. And that is very crucial when you marry the two, right? And so part of today's world, and when you think about it, Abdu, even the job that you are today, anybody on this call or on this conference or event rather, think about the very first day you apply for a position, you went for an interview, the usual traditional ways and approaches of interviewing and recruiting and hiring that always lacks inclusivity, right? And so one of the strategies, how do we make everything accessible from the start? How do we make everything inclusive from the start? What is the availability of assistive technology, right? Which is severely limited in several nations. You had Jackie talking about her screen reader, right? And I'm thinking, is she using JAWS? Is she using NVDA? Is it compatible with her phone? These are some of the things that employers and policymakers, government, think about that all the time, because even though something may be usable, it may not be accessible, right? Yeah. And then the second thing is all these Africa, we'll call it from the East Africa, whether it's Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, South Africa, down south, Botswana, Lesotho, in West Africa, folks in the Gambia, Senegal, whatever it is, North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, whatever that is. African governments have to possess the ability, right, to consider how do we implement effective strategies that harness the immense potential of Africa's youth, right? Africa is already competing on the digital market and landscape. We're already doing that. You heard that from the previous panel. And in order to achieve positive outcomes at all levels, it is crucial for regional leaders, both in the private and public sector, to collaborate effectively. And this can be accomplished through fostering a sense of commitment, taking ownership, responsibilities, establishing those strategic partnerships. Sometimes, we're always the Africa that needs aid, but how about we're the Africa that will provide the solutions, right? So if we partner with and I hate to say this, but we'll say the Chinese market, right? And whatever Western world, Latin America, we're the solutions architect for that, right? We've seen these problems. We have the solutions. And so there's a talent war going on for sustainable and innovative solutions. And the youth are armed with creativity, with innovative technology solutions, and they're way ahead of the game. So we need to make room for youth with disabilities as well, and think about how do we fix systems and not fix people. So I'm going to pause there.
So absolutely, I think that is really necessary, and then I really like the fact that you actually brought up the idea of the usage of accessibility assistive technologies, because at the end, even for example, when you look at the European Union, for instance, they do have accessibility guidelines. When you go to the Americas, for example, they do have accessibility guidelines. But what are African leaders doing to ensure that they come up with the right policies that would ensure that each and every segment of the society, more especially persons with disabilities, are actually included in our fight to ensure that those that actually live with disabilities actually have a space to be able to contribute meaningfully and then contribute towards the economic and social impact of our different lives. So thank you so much for sharing. And I think I would like to ask you this, because you mentioned a very important point, especially when it comes to partnerships and collaboration. And I think having different agencies, like for example, the likes of the United Nations, who are responsible, for example, coming up with, let's say, for example, let's say the strategies and the policies, or perhaps let's say resolutions that will pass on to the different member states to be able to accept and adapt and ensure that they actually fully implemented into whatever into their, let's say, digital and technological landscape. But in perspective, also looking at it from the perspective of diversity and inclusion. So individuals with disabilities frequently encounter the unfortunate circumstance of being disregarded, subjected to discriminatory practices, and then compelled to navigate through a multitude of inequalities and disparities. And the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, in particular Goal 10, which pertains to minimizing disparities both within and between nations, underscores the need for policies to be reassessed and re-examined for persons with disabilities. So if given an opportunity with a United Nations representatives, what kind of policies would you address, or what recommendations would you actually give them?
Sorry, Abdul, that's a good question. And we all take time to, well, let me not say all of us, but let me challenge all of us to go through all those 17 SDGs by United Nations and just pause and think about each one. And so one of the things, if I was given the grand opportunity to do that, is talk about SDG 17, right? When it comes to partnerships and policies. So 17 focuses on strengthening the means of implementation and revitalizing global partnership for sustainable development. Wouldn't that play an important role in ensuring that financial inclusion, which is a topic of discussion when it comes to capacity building that is geared towards initiatives which will create education, employment, and entrepreneurship opportunities for young people with disabilities? So think about that partnership and the policies around there, right? So money, capital, resources, finances, these are all needed. This one commodity is needed to drive some of these initiatives, right? I know from a biblical perspective, money is good, but the love of it is evil. So we need money, right?
Absolutely, we really do.
We need money. Come on, right? And so when policies are implemented in many of these African countries that will focus on closing the disability inclusion gap, right? The partnerships and the policies will now begin to focus on enhancing and sustaining countries, regions, and communities to develop and execute strategies that mitigate the adverse effects of ongoing socioeconomic and environmental crises, as well as the emerging challenges for this youth, right? The youth are hungry to create space for themselves. And when they do that, they will take up that space. And they'll take up that space for innovative strategies to transform the communities. Now, look at the young girls and the women in STEM, Kriti being a very good example. There are women in leadership, women in politics, women in government. We have people with disabilities in STEM, people with disabilities in leadership and in politics and in government. Something that was unheard of, right? Even before the tech bubble. And you would find that women will probably be confined to nurturing jobs or roles. And then people with disabilities, like, nah, they probably can't do much, right?
I think, just to intersect, I think I totally agree with you there, because what we see, especially for when it comes to persons with disabilities, is what they're not able to do.
Yes.
Instead of trying to look beyond the
that.
capability, the expertise, and the experience that they have to be able to contribute meaningfully in our socioeconomic development.
Right.
But that was a good response. But anyway, you can pick it up. I think that was a great one.
You're right about that, because we're tied and we look through the eyes of somebody with disability and probably with some grace or empathy. Oh man, they can't open a door, they can't do this, they can't. But what can they do, right? And so many of these African leaders, they're still leading countries well over the 70-year-old, right? And then they're doing the same old. But we have the youth that are finding new ways to solve old problems or existing problems. And we have to be able to think differently, right? And create those rooms for youth with disabilities and allow them not just have a seat at the table, but also listen to their voice and be the ones to advocate for their voices, amplify those voices, and be their allies in those spaces.
Absolutely. So I totally agree. And thank you so much, Musi. I think that was a very great insight. So our audience, if you are listening, please try sending your questions. I think this conversation has really been a very fruitful one. And like Musi said, it is a collaborative thing. It's a kind of a partnership thing. And then this is exactly what SDG 17 calls us to do. At the end, we are the ones that are actually going to take up the leadership mantle. And then the work starts now. From our different conversations on how we actually kind of have conversations and then build partnership with different individuals. How do we look at them? we need to create that space, even within our own organizations and foundations, for example. If you create a foundation and say, okay, fine, let's now try to give leadership positions. You may perhaps consider saying, okay, maybe these 2 or 3 positions should be given to persons with disabilities, for example, so that they could be included, and then they would also feel that they are valued and they have something to give back to the community, and then to the overall agenda of the achievement of our goals. So that was very insightful, and then I think I would like to bring Kriti here. Kriti, given your background, particularly with related to the Sustainable Development Goal 7 that Musi talked about, how do you envision the collaboration between international organizations like the International ITU, non-governmental organizations, for example, the NGOs, and then the governments in promoting and sustaining digital inclusion efforts across the continent? And this could be, for example, within Africa, taking Africa as a case study, but then going beyond that, for example, in the case of the Asia where you're from and other continents as well.
Yeah, I think Musi raised some really great points here. And just to sort of build on that, I think there needs to be a lot of synergy between governments, between international organizations, and between NGOs. And I think the ITU, for example, does a lot in terms of having guidelines and standards that can help governments develop their own strategies for digital inclusion. And for example, the ITU has a whole, one of its 3 branches is about standardization, and then it has another branch on development, and that focuses a lot on digital inclusion. And certain IOs like the ITU, in the case of digital technology specifically, have a lot of resources, publications, events for member states specifically, which can help them develop their own guidelines and sort of as like a starting point, a jumping off board to sort of see what good practices are in other parts of the world and sort of build on that for their own contexts. And similarly, I think NGOs and civil society in general has a really important role when it comes to community engagement and allowing for the voices of the community to be actually heard and to be actively involved in whatever policies, whatever schemes and strategies that come from perhaps a higher up perspective, like the state level or regional level governments. And I think in generally speaking, there needs to be a synergy not only between the organizations or between the bodies that are creating policies and strategies for digital inclusion, but also a synergy in the way that we look at digital technologies and other aspects of policy making. So just for example, in India, there was a recent application, not so recent, but there was an application that was launched, which was supposed to help a group of community health workers who are posted all across rural and urban India, called the Anganwadis, who are responsible for the nutritional development of young children in their neighborhoods, in their areas. So this app, which is called the Portion Tracker, was to help them track the nutritional development, the growth of the children in a more efficient way. So this is an example, I think, of including digital technologies in a way that including digital technologies in already existing policies in a way that benefits multiple groups, because it allowed this group of community health workers to gain access to technologies, to be able to use them effectively, and therefore it did a certain part in like bridging the gender gap. It also allowed for digital technologies to be included in a very meaningful way in a scheme that was already so widespread. And so it had multiple impacts. And of course, the question of like implementation and whether it was implemented properly is another one. And it's a discussion for another time, but implementation is also definitely something that needs to be addressed, because you can have a great idea, you can have a great policy in mind, you can have great partnerships going, but the actual implementation matters equally. And it's something that very often gets lost because there aren't any, because it's not tracked properly, the monitoring and evaluation isn't, and sometimes data is not properly analyzed or it's not properly collected. There are a number of things that can go wrong with implementation, but it's definitely something that needs to be kept in mind. And that is also where NGOs and IOs can step in and help in the proper implementation of policies and strategies, which might look very good on paper, but need to be executed efficiently as well in order for it to be effective. So,
Absolutely, that is really necessary. And one point that you talked about, which is the data collection part, I think it is very relevant. We are told that data is the new oil of the world, and it's really important that whenever we collecting this data, we ensure that they are one inclusive, but at the same time impact driven. Because at the end, the very reason why we are collecting data is to be able to come up with inclusive and inclusive recommendations that are actually going to kind of involve everyone who's actually part and parcel of this component. And we have seen a chart here where Dr. Margaret actually said that we need to be very strategic in designing the policies that are inclusive. And I think I totally agree with her because this is really necessary. And even, for example, when you look at, for example, in the context of the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, where both you and I actually had the opportunity to work, they have a pyramid. And then in this pyramid, they actually look at things from a holistic approach, in which they look at, for example, in terms of access, how do we ensure that the internet, for example, or digital platforms are made, let's say, for example, are made affordable for individuals to be able to use them. And then, for example, when you move from there to, we talked about the accessibility part of it. How do we ensure that we have accessibility features embedded in the different platforms that we use? But most importantly, we understand that all these broadbands, all these infrastructures, or whatever accessibility features that may perhaps be integrated, people cannot use them if they cannot afford them. So digital inclusion actually goes beyond having these accessibility features, but also ensuring that when we have meaningful connectivity in all our different aspects, and then the right broadband, the right infrastructures, and as well as ensuring that the people that are going to use them would be able to afford them, to leverage them to their own benefit. And this is something that we have all experienced, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic. A case study is, for example, the Gambia. When COVID came, we had to lock down or close down all the schools, and then now have to go back to the drawing board to think as to what needs to be done moving forward, when other countries have actually adapted online platforms or technological tools to be able to navigate it. So it took us time before we were able to adapt to this. And then even when they came up with the idea of having to use Google Meet, especially for those of us that were actually at the university, a lot of students were actually finding it difficult. So digital inclusion is not always, for example, like we said, it's not about for persons with disabilities, but even if with us, for example, people that think that maybe perhaps they do not have that form of disability, but then again, being able to use the platforms in a way that is actually accessible and meaningful is something that is relevant in context. And I really think that we need to be very strategic and strategic when it comes to implementing and putting down policies, but also ensuring that each and every segment of the society, that is, for example, children, youth groups or youth representatives, persons with disabilities, older persons, people who live under underprivileged communities, and even, for example, for indigenous peoples, each and every one of us need to be on the drawing table or on the drawing board or on the table, to have a seat and being able to kind of put recommendations or solutions as to what we think should work for each and every one of us, instead of them thinking as to what they want to work for us. So I think perhaps this could be another discussion for another topic, maybe on another day, for example. But I think it's really important that we have conversations around this. So, Musi, Krithi, do you guys have anything to add into what have already been said? Before I invite Dr. Margaret to come in and then start asking some of the questions that have been asked.
So what I can say real quick in closing, maybe from a inclusion, disability, diversity inclusion perspective, is if everybody can just even write it down, type it out, right? Disability is not inability.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
Disability is not inability. Disability is diversity. And so I asked the question at the beginning of this session. Many of you may have somebody or know somebody or have a personal connection with somebody with a disability. Now, I want you to go back into your homes, into your communities, and find out what is that special skill set, the ability that person is able to do, right? Number one. The second thing is, if you take it on a macro level, African nations should be committed to promoting a society where all its citizens are treated fairly, equitably, and with dignity, especially for people with disabilities, because it takes a global community and concerted efforts to continually advocate for this community. And so the onus is on each one of us to level the playing fields when it comes to resources and opportunities to be accessible for people with disabilities and especially the youth with disabilities, right? So disability is not inability. Disability is diversity. Thank you.
Disability is not ability. Disability is not ability, but disability is actually
No,
diversity, and I totally agree with you.
no, disability is not inability.
Okay,
Yeah,
inability,
disability is
not
not
disability.
inability. Yeah, it is diversity. It's not inability. Meaning, just because somebody is disabled doesn't mean that they can't do. They can't
Absolutely.
work in a corporate. They can't be leaders or legislators, policymakers, CEOs. Right? We just need to fix the system. We need to fix technology. Let technology work for us, and not try to fix the person. Because I feel like that's what we always do constantly.
Most definitely. So we heard from her, disability is not inability, disability is diversity. So I think we really need to anchor that conversation moving forward. Kriti, do you want to say your last words, please?
I think that was an excellent note to end on. But just the last thing you also said, which is that about technology and how we shouldn't use it to fix people, but fix the system. And I just want to end by saying that technology and digital technologies and platforms need to be used responsibly. There was a discussion on AI before this, and I think that's very pertinent to how we view technology, because I think it's just important to remember that technology is not separate from us as individuals, as social beings, as communities. We impact technology as much as technology impacts us. And so it's important that whatever is designed, whatever is created, innovated, has to be done responsibly, inclusively, and in a way that is for the good of the community and of communities and for individuals, and is not done in a way that impacts people negatively or excludes people actively. Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. So I think it has been a very fruitful and insightful discussion between the three of us. Dr. Margaret, thank you so much for joining. And I think my panelists actually really did great. So just in closing, I just want us to remember that true progress is measured not just by technological advancement, but by the extent to which this advancement uplift every individual regardless of their background or their ability. The journey towards a more diverse, digitally inclusive, and accessible world is not taken in isolation, but a collective endeavor that demands an unwavering commitment. As we depart from this panel, let us carry forward the insights here today, igniting conversations and actions that reshape our digital landscape into a realm of equality and opportunity for all. Thank you for your participation, and it has been my pleasure moderating this panel. And until we meet again, I would like to say bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul. You did fantastic.
And
Great
Thank
moderation.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Abdul do not go anywhere. So Abdul says he wants to be like Musi. And Ben Edward says he wants to be like Abdul and Musi. Okay, so some other people are saying many things on the platform. I just want the two of you to know that you are loved by the COI family. And I want to be like both of you. And I want to be like Kriti too. I want to work for the UN.
Yes.
Come on, how do I get a job? All right, so thank you so much. This panel has been awesome. Can you agree? We want to see some comments. Fatima BI, thank you so much. Janet Mendy, thank you. Keep them coming. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of you for your contributions to the platform. We're about to dive into the questions. That there are some questions already coming. And I want everyone listening to remember that this is Influence Africa Youth Forum. And again, this is a restaurant. This is a high class restaurant where you come and this is exquisite. I mean, dining. You come and you're served all kinds of meals. And the panelists have been great. They've been awesome. You know, when there's a difference when people speak from notes that they research, and when people speak out of experience, these people are speaking out of experience. It's coming from the heart, and they are the children of Mama Africa. They are the people that are giving life to Africa, and they have the solution, what it takes to actually move Africa to become that tree of life. So we appreciate all of you, and Kriti, and thank you so much. We welcome you into the COIF family, Kriti. Let it not end here with just being a panelist. We want you to be part of what's going on here. And we lost Jackie there because of technical issues. And that's exactly what we are talking about. And I like what Musi said, that the technology could be there, but we need to look into the accessibility of the technology. Is it functional? Or is it just there as a button, but then when people try to use it, it is not accessible? So these are the things that we need to talk about. All right, so we'll take a few questions, and then we close. I have some highlights from the panelists. I have some highlights. Maybe I need to share the highlights first, and then we see if there's anything, any question that anything that's not addressed in the highlights, we can pose it as a question. So I heard the panelists say digital inclusion is not a one-size-fit-all approach. Our schools, I want us to think about this. Our schools should engage the different modalities in teaching, and in Africa in general, what type of modalities do we use? We should be having lectures. We should be allowing people to use a computer. We should be having visuals and flip charts and things that people could write on. So we should be engaging the different modalities instead of just a lecture. Now, schools in Africa, I want you to think about this, young people. We are talking about equipping Africa's youth with digital skills. We want you to start thinking, are we equipped enough in Africa? Are we equipped to serve everyone? You are moving into, you are already teachers, you are already doctors, you are already in the different sectors, you are entrepreneurs, you are leaders in the different sectors, you are parliamentarians. So you have to think about policies, you have to think about the school system, you have to think about the institutions. Are we equipped to serve everyone in Africa? And Musi startled me with some statistics. Musi says that Africa will constitute about 42% of the world's population very soon. And she says that with that, 500 million youth will be people will be youth with disability. We'll have 500 million youth with disability. So the question, what we need to think about as we walk away from this panel is, how equipped are we to serve those youth? And how skilled are they so they can contribute? And if our institutions equipped to bring them along the journey of development? And the curriculum that we use in African institutions, is it inclusive? And you, the young people, you that are listening, you that are watching, and you that will watch this program later, you are a young person. We want you to start thinking, if you're going to form 5 million of the population, how inclusive are you to your fellow youth that are living with disabilities? Are they included in the programs? Are they given the opportunities to travel? Are they given the opportunities with the scholarships to represent the organizations in meetings and in forums? Are you being inclusive yourself? Are you including them in the journey of development? Many of people living with disabilities are solution architects, according to what Musi shared. They are solution architects. So are we using their skills to solve the problems of society that we face every day? Policy makers is another takeaway. Governments, they must think about technology. This is what Chrissy said. They must think about technology in the different countries, and that people should possess the ability to know these governments and these institutions. Policymakers should possess the ability to know how to utilize technology and even the type of technology to invest in. We need to know what to invest in. It just cannot be a technology there, an ATM machine in a country, in a bank that only 2 people are using in the country. Only 3 people are using because the rest are not educated, because it doesn't have audio ability, because it doesn't have ability for other people with disabilities to be able to use the ATM. It is just meant for those that can see, hear, and read. So that is not that's something that we should be thinking about. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's accessible. And then they said something very critical, that we generally look at persons with disabilities differently. Isn't that the truth? we generally look at them differently. When they walk into a room where we are all seated, how do we react? Do we make them feel like you belong here? You are welcome, come. Or do we look at them like, what are you doing here? So we look at them differently. So we tend to focus on what they cannot do, is what Abdul Karim says, versus what they can offer. So if they are solution architects, how can we utilize them to solve our problems in society? Today on this platform, when we were planning this program, one of the people in this platform recommended Jacqueline to be part of the panelists because it's a relationship, a connection that they have. They realize Jacqueline can come and share something because she represents a population and they need to be heard. So we need to include them. There needs to be a lot of synergy, is what Chrissy says, between government and the international organizations or all the institutions to develop strategies on digital inclusion. And Abdul Karim emphasized here, we are not only talking about people with disabilities, but Abdul Karim emphasized, how about people in remote areas who do not have access to technology? How about or education? How about women who are disqualified? How about youth? How about other people? So we need to be inclusive. And we talk about inclusive diversity and inclusion. We're looking at all rounded, who is not included, that we need to include. And Abdul also says something. Abdul says that data is the new oil of the world. Isn't that profound? You see why I want to be like him when I grow up? Isn't that just profound? He says data is the new oil of the world. What happens with oil? Everybody tries to harvest. Everybody tries to drill. Everybody tries to tap into that oil. So data has become the oil of the world. We need to be inclusive in how it is collected, and we need to be inclusive in how it is utilized. And Kriti left you with a very critical takeaway. Kriti said, be responsible. As you are using that technology, be responsible. With the tech panel already shared with us everything that can go wrong with us using these voice messages, and we're on WhatsApp platforms and we are on all these social media platforms, and what could go wrong. So we have to be critical thinkers. We have to go and harvest this data, but use it with responsibility. So those are my takeaways. I'm ready for some questions if we have any. So we can have the panelists address our questions. And we are about to close with a couple of important things, even for the panelists. If you can stick around, we want you to stick around and enjoy a very powerful poetry presentation coming up, and then our closing remarks from the Vice President of COIF. So do not go anywhere. Now we have a question. How do we fix the system? Musi says something that instead of trying to fix the people, let's focus on fixing the system so that people can function and fit in. So can you get to camera? Musi has a question for you. How do we fix the systems? What are some of the things that the young people need to consider doing as they move into leadership roles, as they move into those places of power? What do they need to consider to utilize to fix the system?
Hey, that's a very good question. Can you hear me? You can hear me, right? Okay. Very, very good question, whoever asked that question. And I wanna challenge all of us, and not just to the one that asked the question, in the sense that part of what we do every day, right, has come as a result of innovation, whether it's from a technology perspective or from folks that try to create a solution from an existing problem. So what am I saying? Start off with the policymakers, in your different constituents, in your different areas, right? The people that run for office. Ask them challenge that status quo, right? Ask them about how do we ensure that barriers are removed, even for people with disabilities. I always ask that question every day, even at church, right? A place where I'm not going to say most discriminated, but when you think about, with worship and there's closed captioning for the songs, but we don't have sign language, right, at the churches. So asking those questions in the sense that how do you include or close the disability inclusion gap? So when they talk about healthcare, housing, agriculture, tourism, aviation, right, aviation or sports and women and governance, you challenge that status quo from the get-go. How does it impact people with disabilities? My brother has a disability and he's not able to do XYZ, but he's able to do Y. And if he's able to do why, what are some of those opportunities available in your company, in your sector, right? How come we don't have representation of people with disabilities? So I'd begin to start challenging and asking those questions and say, you know what? Why would I vote for somebody? Or why would I follow somebody? Or why would I be able to vet for somebody's ideologies if it doesn't have inclusivity or accessibility in mind? The second thing I'd say is, we talked about data. Data doesn't lie. And I will tell you, for some of us that are in our 40s, we're going to, every one of us on this call, we're going to have some sort of disability, whether it's the hearing as we get older. God forbid you get out and hit by something and you end up in crutches or a wheelchair, right? And then you begin seeing, oh, wait a minute. Or your eyes, I'm using glasses. Sometimes I take off my glasses, I can't even see my screen. But we have to be able to constantly ensure that as we're aging, is technology working for us? Right now, I have a paper due, and I know I don't use ChatGPT, but there are other technology out there and some of those applications that help me firm up some of what I need to do, right? And this is all something that's helping me, somebody who doesn't have a disability, but from a cognitive perspective. Does that make sense? And so we need to be able to see what are some of those areas and challenge those. And the last but not least is, like I said, go back to that person you know that has a disability. If there's a problem with whatever you're working on, ask them, how would you solve for this? And listen to the various ways, right? The different thinking, the diversity of perspective, the diversity of thought, the diversity of the way they just see things will be different from your usual day to day. And so find out from that person, whichever disability, how they would solve an existing problem. And you will be amazed at how innovative and sustainable solutions that they'll be able to create. So start with your neighborhood, start with your home community, start with those society, challenge those people. You guys are youth. Challenge them. We're not afraid, or rather, we've become afraid of the youth. My son, 19, he always asks me why. If I ask him to do something, like, Mommy, why am I doing that? When I grew up, I never asked my mother, oh my dad, why? So they're being bold, and they've created that space to be bold and challenge the status quo. And so let's allow them for that. And you all have credence to challenge those policymakers. You have the credence to challenge those folks that are in the offices line above. Ask them and challenge them. Don't hold back.
All right, excellent. I think I saw another question in the YouTube chat. I will wait for them to bring it up. In the meantime, whilst they're bringing up the question, it's a very profound question also from Adam and Mendy. There it is. How can we help the people with disabilities to make use of their skills and potentials in building a better world we need? How can we utilize them? Musi and Kriti, both of you are free to share your points on this, your thoughts.
Kriti, you want to go, or?
You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, part of what I do is in the DEI space is I always look to, and I said this before, I always look to the people with disabilities, employees with disabilities to create those solutions, right? And so we should give them the opportunity to not just, and I said it, not just have a seat at the table, but even have a seat at the table, let them voice out, this doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, this is what you should do to make it work. So open the door, open the boardroom, open the door for them. Let them sit on boardrooms. Like, I always challenge some of the organizations that don't have representation of people with disabilities, right? So open the floor, the boardrooms, and have a seat at the table and listen to their voices, listen to what they have to say, because they're the ones that provide those solutions to an ever challenging and evolving world, especially in the digital space. So I'd start that, number one. And the second thing I'd also want to point out is, don't be afraid to not just to learn from them, but also ask those questions of them, because many times we feel, yeah, right, in the sense that, oh, maybe they may not be able to do this, or tiptoe around a certain area, or we're not quite sure of what term to use. Is it somebody who's disabled, whatever? Just be open and frank with them, because the more you create that self-awareness, the more that the learning and exchange that happens. And so as much as they need us to open those doors and ensure that the voice is being heard, in the same breath we need to continue to lean on them, and this takes a concerted effort of everyone, right? Whether it's the removing of barriers from every sector and ensuring that this place is accessible, this application is accessible, because you had somebody with a disability to be able to address certain things. So I'll give them room, allow them room to stumble through, to stammer through, to will themselves through. Give them time to respond. For example, our neurodivergent colleagues, that they have the processing information. Give them room to say, hey, it's not comfortable if I sit next to the window because of light distractions. Like, remove those barriers and allow for that accommodation for them to thrive, right? If I walk into a room and it's too cold, I'd want a jacket. I want to have somebody to reduce the AC. In the same way, right? If they cannot be able to hear, allow for closed captioning, right? Our friend Jackie, who uses a screen reader, allow for that. So allow them to be themselves, so that you can be able to see some of the solutions that have been created from.
Great, awesome. Chrissy, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, if I could just add to the first point that Musi was making about, it's not just about having a seat at the table. And I think this applies to a lot of the groups and communities that we were talking about today, whether it's people with disabilities, or it's women, or it's people from certain marginalized communities, or indigenous populations. It's not just about giving them a seat at the table and saying that that's it, that's representation, we are being inclusive, because it's about respecting people and respecting communities and respecting perspectives enough to hear what they're saying and to actively involve them in making improvements. Because if we make policies, if we try to do anything without actually listening to the people that it actually impacts, then how helpful is it actually going to be? And I don't always know how I feel about the word inclusion, because sometimes it seems to imply that you are including people in something that's already created, like you're sort of adding a chair to the table, so to speak. But that's not what digital inclusion or any form of inclusion should be. It's about recognizing that everyone has an equally valid, equally important voice that deserves to be heard. And yeah, I think that's just all that I wanted to add. Yeah.
That is so profound. That is so profound. You nailed it. You nailed it, Chrissy. Thank you, Chrissy.
So Doctor, just to come in.
Right, go ahead.
I know I was the moderator, but this time around, I'm actually going to join the panelists. So I think I would just like to draw us back to what Musi initially said. Disability is not inability. Disability is diversity, and this is exactly from the perspective that we need to look at it from. We need to have effective conversations with persons with disabilities without being judgmental, to give them hope, to give them that courage that you can do it. Don't look at yourself from the perspective of what you're not able to do, but from the perspective of what you have and what you can deliver, and then use that knowledge and expertise and that ability to make a difference, not only in your life, but in the lives of the other people that you're going to interact with. So briefly, this is just what I wanted to say. And then just to kind of close it, there's this saying that give me a fish and I will give a fish to someone and the person would feed him or herself on that very day. But teach me how to fish, perhaps I'll be able to feed myself for the rest of my life. And I think this is exactly what we need to do. We need to involve them. We need to give them involve them in whatever policies or strategies that are going to be put in place. But by extension, also looking at it from how best we can also inculcate that knowledge, that skill development within them, to be able to harness that particular opportunity and then contribute towards the advancement and the development of our world. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree with all of you. Madam President, of COIF, Fatuma BI brought to our attention that we need to compliment your dreadlocks, that you are looking fantabulous, you are looking cocabulous, you are looking sweetabulous, and she wants us to say something about it. So here you go. Madam President, your dreadlocks are off the chain. You are looking fantabulous, cocabulous, sweetabulous, fruitabulous. So we appreciate you, Madam President.
You all are making me blush. Thank you so much. I think this hairstyle shaved off 20 years off of me, but I appreciate it.
We have to fulfill all righteousness. So we have a question here, and I just want to draw. Yasin Y. Jallo had asked previously, how do we build the self-esteem of people with disabilities? And I think that's already addressed in the last question when you guys, you know, you are very profound and clear that it's not just bringing people to join the table. It's giving them the room and making them feel that they can contribute and allowing them to feel that they can bring value and they are people of value. And when we do all of that, what we are doing, like bringing everybody to join, then we will allow them, and not only joining to be part of the number, but making them visible and giving them the stage and giving them the microphone to speak, and we hear. When we do that, we help to build their self-esteem. All right, great. So is Jacqueline back again? Jacqueline, she's coming. She's going in and out. We wanted to give her the opportunity to share her final thoughts, but we'll move on for now. So we are about, thank you very much, panelists. Abdul Karim, you and your panelist, Musi, president of COIF. I know that the COIF youth today are very excited. Even the COIF leaders are on the plan. The board of directors are here. The executive board members are here. The youth are here. Everybody's excited and celebrating to have you in the house today. And, you know, the president said there's something very key. The reason she is able to speak so profoundly about people with disabilities because she's living with it with a child, but she didn't make that child a problem. She didn't make the child. I mean, this is about emotions, and this is about, oh me, my child this, my child that. You should see that the son of our president, very dynamic young man, very skilled. I mean, he is in music, he is in sports, he is in leadership at the church, he is being involved and he is developing because he has a lot to offer. That boy can play any kind of music by just hearing it, and there we go. He can get on that instrument and play it like he's the one that created the music. What would have happened if the parents of that boy just sit him in a corner and make him feel so sorrowful and ashamed to introduce him to other people as a member of the family? I mean, we love him. He knows all of us. If he saw me right now, he will run and give me the biggest hug. And I tell him, I love you. He says, I love you. So, you know, because he is included. And that's what we are talking about. When people are included, their abilities will come out. This oil that Abdul Karim is talking about, they have oil inside of them. When we love them, when we embrace them, when we bring them to the table and we give them the microphone, and when we tell them there is something good inside of you, something good is going to come out of them. So that's what we are talking about today. We are grateful for all of you, the panelists, Abdul, Krisi, Musi, and even Jacqueline, who's having technical challenges. We are grateful to all of you. And there is a question here. I don't want to ignore it before we go. In our societal settings in the Gambia today, most people with disabilities go into the streets to beg. How do you think as a nation we can equip them for the labor market? Krisi and Musi, do you have suggestions? Because these are the people that are moving into government offices and the corridors of power. They want to know when they come into power, they don't want to see all these people begging in the streets. If they are solution architects, how do we engage them so they can get off the streets and get into contributing?
Sorry, can you hear me? I'm trying to get to the whatever unmute button. So again, it just boils down to even the leaders that we elect into this government offices, some of those officials and policy makers, right? And so part of what I know from Kenya, that the manifesto they do have very intentionally talk about people with disabilities, right? Whether it's policies around there, the National Health, whatever fund, I forget the acronym there, NHIF, I think. Like they're very intentional on creating a financial stream, some of the, and implementing a lot of organizations, whether it's communities of practices, non-for-profit organizations that, whether it's the blind and low vision community, the deaf and hard of hearing community, you have women with disabilities, the permanent secretary that heads disability, that ministry has a disability. So there's also representation. And so just being very intentional. And it's not necessarily, handouts or here, some of the disability and this, that, but when you start creating those opportunities through TVET, right? The technical, vocational, educational training, you start creating those institutions where, hey, whether it's from a vocational training, or we have something going on, and this is for everybody, including people with disabilities, where you hone in on your skill set, right? Maybe it's a day rehabilitation hub, where they equip these. Not only are they feeding them and providing them the basic needs, but also equipping them with the skill set that they need to be members of contributing, or other contributing members of the society, right? And so again, not looking at the disability in a way that is scornful in society, but getting them off the streets, getting them into TVET areas where they're able to hone in on that skill set, and ensure that, okay, if we're going to train them on, it's technology, have the digital folks go in there, make companies, pay it forward. The IBMs and the Microsofts in these African countries pour into these institutions where they provide the training, they provide the learning, closing that opportunity gap. So, and it becomes a win-win, right? And so for that, whoever asked that question, also think differently, in the sense that I remember when I was growing up, I don't know what happens with the youth today, but I remember when I was growing up in school, we always worked on your weakest subject. Work on your weakest subject. Work on your weakest whatever. But in corporate, in the real world, in the workforce, you have a seat at the table because you're a subject matter expert in a certain field. And that's the thing. That's the key. What skill set does whomever on the street, person with a disability, what do they have? Maybe they have a high acuity of memorization. They memorize stuff. Put them in compliance. Let them be, part of what they read in legal or whatever, because they can remember stuff. Somebody with a high acuity of data, put them in risk. Put them in technology, right? And so use that skill set that they have, and everything else is the system that we need to fix. Let it work for them. And so challenge your officials, ensuring that we have the TVETs going on, where there are institutions that are able to not just get funded, but also equip those individuals and hone in on their skill set that will be marketable in the workforce. I hope that helped answer the question.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. Chrissy, do you want to add anything?
No, I think as always, Musi made some really excellent points, and she's very knowledgeable on the subject. And I think I'm just very happy to hear from her and to hear all the.
Right. Great.
This is why I said I want to be like her when I grow up.
I can understand.
So I think one thing that I'm actually going to add, which she already said, but to buttress more on that, is we need to be very strategic when we actually collecting data about persons with disabilities, not necessarily to collect data randomly because they're persons with disabilities, just because we want to know the numbers. But we also need to look at it from what are they good at, what are they interested in, and what do they want to do, or what do they want to accomplish in their different lives. So once we're able to kind of collect this data inclusively, we are now able to make decisions as to what kind of programs or strategies we can implement to be able to support these kind of people. And then beyond that too as well, I think we really need training. Not necessarily, for example, in the workplace, where we're actually trying to build a culture of diversity and inclusivity, but even in schools, for example. How often do teachers or, for example, lecturers teach people about inclusion and diversity? It is not happening. So I think having conversations around this consistently within schools, within, let's say, platforms like this, within the workplace, etc., we will be able to bridge that gap, and then being able to come up with strategies that will help to uplift the lives and livelihoods of these particular individuals. I think it is a collective effort, and not single individual can actually do it, but it has to be a collaborative effort. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Abdul. Now we are going to release your panel. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for all the contribution and value you have added to this platform. I believe that each and everyone that is on this platform, with the large number of people that are logged in from our various platforms, everybody has picked something that we can walk away from your panel. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. We love you, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Well, viewers, don't you go anywhere, because we are about to listen and enjoy a very powerful poetry presentation from two of our mentees, and they are ready to recite their poem. Very soon we will hear from them, and then we hear our closing remarks from our president. And I have a very important announcement to make at the end, so don't you go anywhere, because we want to make sure that you are here to receive the information and to get the news hot from the press. All right, let's go. We are ready for our video, for our poetry presentation.
It has been a tough journey, where at times you feel like giving up, but something kept reading in your mind, fighting to make them equal. I quote, "Those who follow the path of themselves that are great become great, but those who follow the path of themselves that are small become small." Always have this belief that whatever you can do it, because everyone faces challenges. But everything comes to an end. So kick them off and use them as reference. Follow your heart and be yourself. Do what you want and not what people want. Don't listen to what people say, because if you are to listen to all those words, you begin to fall apart.
Déglu leen samay kàddu ndaxte dama jooy ba suma rongoñ fer. Cause when I see young girls stripping themselves naked, all in the name of booze, everybody is busy pumping nyash and boobs. Fake life has taken over the world. People are no more content with what they have. Instead, they are busy borrowing hairs and wigs, fixing nails and eyelashes, while their parents find it difficult to make ends meet.
For if we engage ourselves in skills, we can better our lives. Let us not look down upon other occupations like photography, auto mechanic, carpentry, cleaner, shoe doctor, just to name a few. Everyone has his or her choice. They choose to be this. They love their job, appreciate it, and always happy when doing it.
The calabash of hope is broken. Broken children roll with tunnels without a light. No motivation. For students are forced to adventure into works which they never choose. But we don't know that they have passion for poetry, photography, painting, entrepreneurship. But jobs like this are not valid in our nation. That's why their aspirations are shattered. Their dreams are broken. So it's an honor writing this poem to more than tell you to be the best version of yourself. Follow your dreams. Strive for success. Be content. Make your own decisions, because you know the things you are capable of.
So stand on your feet and say, I can do it. Be eloquent. Be brave. Be strong. Be yourself. Dear youth, you can do it.
I know you are tired and fed up. I know you are close to breaking, but there is so much strength in you. Don't give up. Keep hoping. Keep trying. Keep being you. Your best days and happiest times are ahead of you.
Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. This poem is fire. This poem says, Dear youth. This is a letter to every young person that is watching right now or will watch in the future. This is a letter to you. This is a letter to hold on. Somebody said, Dear youth, everything is going wrong around you, but there is still something in you that you can contribute. There is still some oil in you that needs to flow. And when this oil flows, it will be a solution to the continent of Africa. Mama Africa has put something in you, some culture, some values in you. Don't sell your values. Don't sell your culture. Don't sell yourself for food. This is their youth. So I want you to really think about what is being shared over here. Thank you, Mariama Jallo and Fatoumata Kamara. And we cannot thank them without thanking their instructor and mentor, Ajindumbe Job, who is the instructor over the creative art program for COIF. She's doing a fantastic job. If you love Ajindumbe, let me see something coming from you. We appreciate you, Ajindumbe. We thank you, Mariama and Fatumata. Thank you so much for pouring into us. Thank you for giving us something to walk away with, dear youth. And by the way, we are all youth, and this letter is to all of us. So on that note, I want to invite our Vice President, George Mara, to give us his closing remarks. Don't go anywhere, because there is a great announcement at the end. And if you drop off, you will lose it. You will miss out. So stay on course and stay tuned. And we are winding down now, but we cannot close our session today without hearing from one of our senior leaders of the organization. George Mara is the Vice President, the board and a board member and alumni member of COIF. And George is many things to many people, but to us here in this family, George is everything, and also a very dependable and committed senior leader. George, sometimes I ask myself, what would we have done without you? So please help me to welcome him to share his closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. Hope I'm audible. Am I audible, Doctor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and remarkable participants. It is both an honor and a privilege to deliver the closing remarks on this momentous occasion of International Youth Day. As we gather under the inspiring theme, equipping Africa's youth with digital skills for sustainable development, we have been reminded by all speakers of the incredible potentials and boundless energy that the youth of our continent possess. Throughout history, young people have been the catalyst for change, the architect of progress, and the driving force behind transformative movements. In this era of rapid globalization and unprecedented changes, it is imperative that we invest in ourselves as youth by acquiring knowledge in digital skills to shape a brighter and more sustainable future for ourselves and generations to come. As we draw the curtains on this inspiring commemoration of International Youth Day, it's important to reflect on the profound insight we have gained today. This virtual gathering has illuminated the path forward for a continent that is not just brimming with youthful potential, but also poised to harness the power of digital skills as a catalyst for sustainable progress. For the past couple of hours, we have had meaningful dialogues and contributions from all speakers centered on unveiling the pivotal role that digital skills play in shaping Africa's trajectory towards sustainable development. The alignment of this year's International Youth Day celebration with the Influence African Youth Forum has been an inspiring platform for fostering awareness, dialogue, and connection. And I strongly believe that we have achieved our objective with great zeal. Firstly, through this event, we've brought critical global issues, particularly those affecting Africa, to foster discussions and awareness, which serves as a catalyst for positive change and progress. Secondly, engaging in dialogues that have taken place have ignited a passionate flame within the hearts and minds of all young people present here. This flame, fueled by meaningful conversation, will undoubtedly steer our future leaders towards impactful actions that drive societal transformations, which is built around technology. We have opened doors to boundless opportunities for learning and growth. In an era where information is power, the discussions held here will serve as a guiding beacon for leveraging the digital realm to cultivate life-changing skills. This is the right time to step beyond our comfort zones and to sow seeds of innovation and creativity that will ultimately change the Africa we all dream of. Trust me, it is not enough to hope for a better tomorrow. We must act now. In his book, From Dreaming to Becoming, Dr. Finas stated, and I quote, "Growth brings good things. Good things don't bring growth. You cannot experience full success with half-hearted commitment. The level of your distinction as a dreamer is predicated on your total commitment. We need to be fully committed as youth if we want to position ourselves for a brighter future. In conclusion, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to every individual who has contributed to the success of this event, from our esteemed speakers to an insightful panelist, to our dedicated organizing team, our passionate participants. Your unveiling dedication to cause dedication to the cause of equipping Africa's youth with digital skills for sustainable development serves as a beacon of hope and inspiration. Let us march forward, hand in hand, armed with digital skills and a shared vision as we build the Africa of our aspiration. Thank you, and onwards to a brighter future. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, George. We appreciate you, Vice President COIF. Viewers, speakers, and performers. Everyone on this platform, the viewers, the speakers, the performers, thank you for adding your voices and contributions to the Africa Day dialogue that we've just had today. Please keep in mind that Influence Africa Youth Forum will come your way every quarter and even in between. And the forum has a singular vision. It is intended to bring key players in youth development from different continents and countries to the platform to impart knowledge in the youth and provide you with the direction, equip you, and build and prepare you in how you can build a sustainable world. Please join us on the journey of influencing leadership by subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media pages, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, and even on our website. And you are invited also to share share your day with us, share your week with us. Tell us how well we are doing, and tell us what you want to see come your way. Share some topics that you would like us to cover on this forum. We are open to your feedback, and we want to be all inclusive. Now, here comes the big announcement. We have a program within Coaches of Influence Foundation, a model United Nations program called Coaches United Nations Simulation. And Coaches United Nations Simulations has an annual event. It is called the Gambia International Model United Nations Conference. The Gambia International Model United Nations Conference. And this conference, for the 2023 conference, it is scheduled to occur in November in the beautiful, smiling coast and dynamic, vibrant country of the Gambia in West Africa. I don't know where you're tuning from today, but look us up on the internet. We are the smiling coast. The Gambia is the smiling coast of West Africa. Beautiful beaches. I mean, this country is beautiful. There is no problem in this country. Everybody is happy. Everybody smiles. The Gambia, no problem. That is where we are taking this conference to. The Gambia International Model United Nations Conference is coming up in November 2023, and you don't want to miss out. You don't want to be left out. What we talked about today is just the tip of the iceberg. The actual meat of what we are going to discuss will happen there at the table of dialogue at the Gambia International Model United Nations Conference. If you have not registered already, please consider doing so now. We are going to share the information on our screen. It's mycons, mycuns.org. That's mycons.org. You can go there to register. We would love to see you register today. Whilst you are thinking about it, whilst you are excited about it, we want to see your registration coming in. That is the great announcement that I had today. All roads are leading to the Gambia International Model United Nations Conference. The smiling coast of West Africa is the Gambia. You cannot miss this conference. You cannot afford to miss it. Don't even try. Don't even think about it. And if you're in Gambia, there is no excuse. You have to be there. If you want to continue this dialogue, you need to be there. So we look forward to seeing you there. All right. That's my exciting announcement. And I am excited because I am going to make sure that I am there. So are you going to be there? Can I count on you to be there? I am looking forward to seeing you. So we have had a wonderful time together. Will you say so? I want to see your comments coming through. Do you agree that we have had a wonderful time together, and we have viewers from different continents and different nations that are coming to learn about Influence Africa Forum and how we can equip young people with digital skills, Africa's youth with digital skills, so they can become the tree that gives Africa life and give African people lives. Thank you so much for your commitment to join us on the journey of influence and impact. Coaches United, Coaches of Influence Foundation has one singular vision. We have just one vision. We have one reason for existence. And that reason is to convert youth and women into transformational leaders and positive influencers for their generation and the generations after them. So we are raising an army of influencers to positively impact your generation and the generations after you. That is the singular vision. And we want you to join us. We invite you to join us on this journey. Do not miss our next Influence Africa Forum. Do not miss the Gambia International Model United Nations Conference. Do not miss anything we have coming your way. We are ready. We are gearing up. Even as we wind down for 2023, we are already gearing up for 2024. If you're not part of our mentorship program, you're missing out. If you're not part of this organization, you're not following up, you're not logging in, you're not signing up, you are missing out a great deal, because 2024, here we come. But before that, we want to see you at TGI Moon. We invite you to join us. We invite you in our next forum also. Now, I've been excited from the time we started to now. I'm getting more excited, but the time has come to a close. On this note, I want to say, until I see you in the next forum, until I come your way again, we'll be the influence that Africa needs and be the influence that the world needs. Thank you so much for having us today. Thank you for allowing us to share your day with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.